Every calm body you see in the daylight may be carrying grief that never found a safe place to go. When the house becomes quiet, when the distractions disappear, when no one needs you to be strong, something buried begins to rise. The tightness in your chest, the heaviness behind your eyes, the tiredness that sleep never seems to fix, the memories your mind stopped speaking about, but your body never forgot. We were taught to move on, to stay busy, to keep smiling, to return to work before the heart was ready, to forgive without being heard, to survive loss without learning how to release it, so the grief remained. Not always as tears, but as tension, as restlessness, as a body that stays guarded long after the painful moment has passed. But there is a quieter part of you that still knows how to heal, a part that does not need to force, explain, or rush. It only needs permission to soften, permission to stop holding everything together, permission to let the body finish what it could not process when the pain first arrived. The Stoics believed that peace begins when we stop arguing with what has already happened. That acceptance is not approval. It is the end of the inner struggle. That grief becomes lighter when we allow it to move through us, instead of demanding that it disappear. Tonight, that is what this meditation is for. A place for the body to loosen its grip. A place for old sorrow to finally breathe. A place for the grief you carried in silence to begin releasing. Gently, slowly, and without fear. And as the body begins to soften in this quiet space, it may reveal something the mind has hidden for years. Grief does not always arrive as tears. Sometimes it lives in the shoulders that never drop, the jaw that never fully rests, and the hands that remain tense even when there is nothing left to fight. There may have been a time when your body learned that relaxing was not safe. Perhaps life changed without warning. Someone left. Someone died. A home stopped feeling like home. A relationship became uncertain. A painful truth arrived before you had the strength to understand it. You may have wanted to cry, speak, or fall apart, but the moment demanded something else. You had responsibilities. People depended on you. Bills still had to be paid. Meals still had to be prepared. The world did not pause simply because your heart had been wounded. So your body helped you continue. It tightened your muscles. It shortened your breathing. It raised your shoulders and prepared you for the next difficult moment. This was not weakness. It was protection. Your body was trying to keep you standing when life felt too heavy to carry. But protection can remain long after the danger has passed. The painful event may be years behind you, yet your muscles may still behave as if it could happen again. Your neck may stay stiff. Your back may ache after an ordinary day. Your forehead may remain tense while you sleep. You may wake with your hands closed or your teeth pressed together. Even in peaceful rooms, part of you may still be waiting for bad news. This is how grief can become physical. The body does not understand time in the same way the thinking mind does. The mind can say, "That happened long ago." But the body remembers the feeling of the moment. It remembers the shock, the helplessness, the silence, and the need to stay strong. It remembers what you were unable to express. Some grief was never given space because other people were uncomfortable with it. They wanted you to recover quickly. They told you to be grateful, stay positive, or move forward. Perhaps they meant well, but their words taught you to hide what was still alive inside you. You may have smiled when you wanted to weep. You may have said, "I am fine," because explaining the truth felt exhausting. You may have cared for everyone else while no one noticed that your own strength was running out. Each time you swallowed an emotion, the body may have tightened around it, not because the emotion became trapped like an object, but because your nervous system learned a pattern of holding, guarding, and preparing. The muscles became part of the silence. This is why rest can sometimes feel uncomfortable. When you finally lie down and nothing demands your attention, the body loses its distractions. The tension becomes easier to notice. A sudden ache appears. A memory rises. Sadness enters without knocking. You may wonder why you feel worse when everything is quiet. But the quiet is not creating the grief. It is revealing what busyness helped you avoid. The Stoics understood that pain becomes heavier when we spend our energy resisting its existence. They did not teach people to become emotionless. They taught them to see clearly, to stop adding shame, fear, and judgment to what was already painful. You do not need to criticize your body for staying tense. It learned this response during a time when you needed protection. Instead, you can meet it with understanding. Tonight, you are not ordering the muscles to relax. You are showing them that they no longer need to stand guard. Let your attention move gently toward your forehead. Notice whether it is smooth or tightened. There is nothing to fix. Simply notice. Awareness itself begins to interrupt old patterns. Now become aware of the space around your eyes. These small muscles have carried more than they were designed to hold. They have narrowed during worry, resisted tears, and stayed alert through sleepless nights. Allow them to become heavy without forcing them. Notice your jaw. Many unspoken words have rested there. Anger you did not express. Questions that never received answers. Goodbyes you were not ready to say. Let the teeth separate slightly. Let the tongue rest. You do not have to continue the conversations that ended long ago. Bring your attention to your shoulders. They may have become the place where duty and sorrow met. Every responsibility you carried while grieving may have told them to remain lifted. Let them sink a little deeper now. You are not dropping your responsibilities. You are releasing the belief that tension is what makes you responsible. Your chest may hold another kind of guarding. After loss, the body may protect the heart by making the breath smaller. A full breath can feel vulnerable because it opens the very place where sadness has lived. Do not demand a deep breath. Let the breath grow at its own pace. Each gentle inhale tells the body that there is room. Each slow exhale tells it that this moment is not the moment that hurt you. The stomach may also remain tight when grief was mixed with fear. You may have spent years waiting for another loss, another disappointment, or another sudden change. This waiting can become so normal that you stop recognizing it as tension. Allow the belly to soften. You do not need to predict every painful possibility in order to survive the future. Readiness cannot prevent all sorrow. It only steals peace from moments that are safe. The Stoic path asks you to separate what is happening now from what has already happened. The loss belongs to your story, but it is not occurring again in this room. The person may still be gone. The disappointment may still be real. Acceptance does not erase that truth. It simply ends the body's endless attempt to prepare for a past event. Your muscles do not have to prove how much you loved by remaining tense. Your pain does not become more meaningful because you carry it forever. Releasing the physical strain is not betrayal. It does not mean the person mattered less. It does not excuse what someone did. It does not remove the importance of what you survived. It means you are allowing grief to become remembrance instead of constant defense. There is a difference between carrying love and carrying the moment of loss. Love can remain without keeping the body trapped in the worst day. Memory can remain without forcing the nervous system to relive the shock. Tonight, the body may not release everything. It does not need to. Healing rarely happens through one dramatic moment. It often begins through small signs of safety repeated gently. A shoulder lowers. A hand opens. The breath reaches a little deeper. The jaw stops preparing to speak. The back settles more fully into the bed. These changes may seem small, but they carry a powerful message. The emergency is over. Let your body receive that message without pressure. It has protected you for a long time. It may need patience before it believes that rest is truly allowed. You are not fighting the tension. You are thanking it for what it once tried to do, then showing it that its work can end. The muscles can soften now. The guard can step away. And the grief that once had nowhere to go can begin moving through you, not as a force that destroys, but as a quiet truth that no longer needs to hide. And as the body slowly learns that it no longer has to remain on guard, another kind of grief may begin to surface. Not only grief for what happened, but grief for who you might have become if you had felt safe enough to be fully yourself. There may be a version of you that never had the chance to grow in the open, a quieter version, a bolder version, a softer version, a version that wanted to speak honestly, trust deeply, create freely, or live without constantly measuring every word. That person did not disappear because they lacked courage. They learned to hide because hiding once felt safer than being seen. This kind of grief is difficult to name because no funeral was held for it. No one gathered around you and said, "Something precious was lost here." Life simply continued. You became practical, careful, useful. You learned what pleased people and what made them withdraw. You noticed which emotions were welcomed and which ones created tension. Little by little, you shaped yourself around the room. Perhaps you became the child who caused no trouble, the partner who stayed quiet to keep the peace, the friend who listened but rarely spoke about personal pain, the worker who accepted too much because saying no felt dangerous, the strong one who could be depended on but who did not know how to depend on anyone else. From the outside, this may have looked like maturity. Inside, it may have felt like disappearance. The self does not always vanish through one dramatic event. Sometimes it fades through thousands of small decisions made for survival. You laugh when something hurts. You agree when you want to refuse. You stay when you want to leave. You apologize for having needs. You become easy to love by becoming difficult to truly know. At the time, these choices may have protected you. A child cannot always challenge an unpredictable home. A person who depends on someone cannot always risk rejection. A grieving heart may not have enough strength to defend its own truth. So you adapted. Adaptation is one of the mind's greatest abilities, but the habits that help you survive one season can quietly control the rest of your life. Years later, you may still ask for permission when none is needed. You may explain simple choices as though you are standing before a judge. You may feel guilty for resting, changing your mind, or disappointing someone. You may struggle to answer the question, "What do you want?" because you spent so long studying what everyone else wanted from you. This is where mourning begins. Mourning this hidden self does not mean becoming trapped in regret. It means recognizing that something real was denied. You deserved room to develop without fear. You deserved to make mistakes without losing love. You deserved to express sadness without being called weak, anger without being called difficult, and joy without being told to become smaller. You may not have received that safety. The Stoic response is not to pretend the loss was unimportant. It is to look at the truth without allowing the past to control what remains possible. You cannot return to the exact years that passed. You cannot give your younger self a different childhood, a gentler home, or the protection they needed. This fact may hurt, but acceptance begins by refusing to argue with time. The past cannot be rewritten. Your relationship with it can. There is still a difference between the life you were prevented from living then and the life you choose not to live now. The first was shaped by circumstances you may not have controlled. The second is gradually placed back into your hands. This is not about blaming yourself for hiding. The person you became was doing the best they could with the safety, knowledge, and power available at the time. They learned to read faces, avoid conflict, expect rejection, and prepare for disappointment. These were not signs of failure. They were forms of intelligence built under pressure. But you do not have to remain loyal to every survival skill. You can thank the version of you who learned to disappear without asking them to continue disappearing. Tonight, allow yourself to notice what was buried beneath all that carefulness. Perhaps there was a voice that wanted to be heard, a talent that was dismissed, a dream that seemed too foolish to share, a kind of love you wanted but did not believe you deserved, a boundary you needed but were afraid to set. Do not rush to repair everything. First, let the loss be real. There is grief in realizing how often you abandoned your own feelings to avoid abandonment by others. There is grief in remembering how many rooms you entered while leaving your true self outside. There is grief in knowing that some people only knew the version of you that made them comfortable. Let this truth arrive without turning it into another reason to punish yourself. You were not false, you were protected. The mask was not a lie, it was armor, but armor becomes heavy when worn long after the battle has ended. The Stoics taught that character is shaped through deliberate choices. This does not mean forcing yourself to become fearless overnight. It means reclaiming small areas of inner freedom, saying what you truly think without cruelty, allowing a preference to exist without defending it, refusing a request when agreement would create resentment, letting someone misunderstand you without rushing to change their opinion. These actions may appear ordinary, but to a person who learned that safety depended on pleasing others, they are acts of restoration. Each honest choice gives the hidden self more room. You may also discover that the person you could have been is not waiting somewhere in the past. That person is still forming. You are not searching for a perfect, untouched self buried beneath the years. You are creating a more truthful life from everything you have survived and understood. The self you mourn may never appear exactly as it would have under different circumstances. But another self can emerge, one with tenderness and wisdom the younger version could not yet possess. This is why mourning is not the end of the process. It clears space. You grieve the confidence that was discouraged, so you can practice speaking now. You grieve the playfulness that was mocked, so you can welcome joy now. You grieve the needs that were ignored, so you can begin respecting them now. You grieve the years spent shrinking, so you can stop offering the future to the same fear. There may be people who resist this change. They became comfortable with the version of you who never objected, never asked, and never took up much space. When you begin to live more honestly, they may call you selfish, distant, or different. They will be correct about one thing: you are becoming different, not cruel, not careless, not ungrateful, simply less willing to disappear. Stoic wisdom reminds you that other people's reactions are not fully within your control. Your responsibility is not to make every person comfortable with your growth. Your responsibility is to act with honesty, fairness, and self-respect. You can be kind without surrendering yourself. You can love people without allowing them to define you. You can understand why someone hurt you without continuing to live according to that wound. Tonight, speak silently to the version of you that hid for so long. Do not demand that they become brave immediately. Tell them the danger has changed. Tell them they no longer have to earn their right to exist. Tell them that their feelings can enter the room now. There may be sadness in this meeting. Let it come gently. You are mourning the years when safety seemed to require silence. But you are also witnessing the beginning of something new. The hidden self is not asking you to recover every lost opportunity. It is asking you not to lose the next one. You still have choices. You still have a voice. You still have time to live in a way that feels like your own. And as the night grows quieter, you may begin to understand that the person you never felt safe enough to become was never completely gone. They were waiting beneath the caution, beneath the pleasing, beneath the long habit of holding back. They were waiting for a moment like this. A moment when you would stop asking whether the world was ready for the real you and begin making your own heart a safe place for that person to return. And as the hidden parts of you begin to return, you may notice another burden standing between you and peace. It is not only the pain of what happened, it is the exhausting inner struggle against the fact that it happened at all. One wound came from life. The other may have come from fighting reality every day afterward. Pain and resistance can feel like the same thing, but they are not. Pain is the natural ache of loss, disappointment, rejection, or change. It arrives when someone you love is no longer beside you. It appears when a dream ends, a relationship breaks, or life takes a direction you never chose. Pain is human. It does not mean your mind is failing. It means something mattered to you. Resistance begins when the mind says, the moment should not have happened. It sounds like, this cannot be true. They should still be here. I should have noticed sooner. My life was not supposed to become this. I should be over it by now. These thoughts may seem like attempts to understand the pain, but they often keep the mind standing at the doorway of a past it cannot re-enter. The event happened once. Resistance asks you to fight it 1,000 times. This does not mean you should approve of what happened. Stoic acceptance is not pretending that cruelty was acceptable, that loss was fair, or that betrayal did not matter. Acceptance does not turn wrong into right. It does not ask you to smile at pain or call suffering a gift. Acceptance simply says, this is part of reality now, and I will stop exhausting myself by demanding that reality become different. That sentence may feel harsh at first. The mind often believes that releasing resistance means surrendering love, hope, or justice. It may fear that if you stop fighting what happened, then you are saying it did not matter. But your resistance is not what proves that it mattered. Love is not measured by how long you remain trapped in disbelief. Loyalty is not measured by how often you reopen the wound. You do not honor a person by refusing to live because they can no longer live beside you. You do not protect your younger self by spending the rest of your years arguing with what they endured. You can remember without resisting. You can care without collapsing. You can acknowledge that something should not have happened while also accepting that it did. The Stoics understood that peace depends on recognizing the border between what is within your control and what is not. This border does not remove grief, but it prevents grief from taking possession of every part of your life. You cannot control the past. You cannot change another person's choice after it has been made. You cannot command someone to return, force an apology to arrive, or recover every opportunity that was lost. You cannot make time move backward simply because your heart was not ready for it to move forward. Yet there are things that still belong to you. You can choose how gently you speak to yourself tonight. You can decide whether one painful chapter will become the meaning of your entire story. You can allow a memory to rise without treating it as an emergency. You can stop placing yourself on trial for decisions made with the knowledge you had at the time. This is where acceptance becomes strength. It does not give you control over what occurred. It returns control over what you do with this moment. Resistance often hides inside questions that have no final answer. Why did this happen? Why did they choose me? Why was I not protected? Why did life take this person and leave someone else? The mind repeats these questions because it believes one perfect answer will remove the pain. Sometimes understanding helps. but some experiences do not offer an explanation large enough to satisfy the heart. Even when an answer exists, it may not change the outcome. The search can become another room in which grief keeps you awake. Stoic wisdom invites you to ask a different question. Not, why did life allow this? But, what is mine to do now? This question does not dismiss the past. It turns your face toward the small area where your freedom still lives. Perhaps what is yours to do now is rest. Perhaps it is to stop blaming yourself. Perhaps it is to speak honestly about what happened. Perhaps it is to carry forward the kindness of someone you lost, instead of carrying only the moment they were taken from you. The answer does not need to be dramatic. Acceptance is often built through quiet decisions repeated over time. When a memory arrives, you can say, yes, this happened. When sadness follows, you can say, yes, this hurts. When the mind begins demanding a different past, you can say, I cannot return there, but I am here now. These words are not meant to silence emotion. They prevent the mind from adding another layer of struggle to it. Pain says, I miss them. Resistance says, I cannot live in a world where they are gone. Pain says, I was hurt. Resistance says, I will never be whole because this happened. Pain moves like a wave. Resistance builds a wall and traps the water inside. Without resistance, grief may still visit. Some nights may still feel heavy. Certain songs, dates, rooms, or familiar scents may awaken what you thought had settled. Acceptance does not guarantee that sorrow will disappear. It gives sorrow permission to move instead of forcing it to remain frozen. You do not have to fear every returning emotion. A painful memory does not mean you have lost all your progress. Tears do not mean you are back at the beginning. Grief can return in a different form because healing is not a straight road. The Stoic does not judge the wave for returning. The Stoic learns not to drown while it passes. Tonight, notice the places where the mind is still arguing with reality. You may hear the words, if only. If only you had called. If only you had stayed. If only you had left sooner. If only you had known. These thoughts can create the illusion that the past is still open for correction. But if only is a doorway that leads to a room where nothing can be changed. You can visit it for understanding, but you do not have to live there. You made choices as the person you were then, not as the person who now knows how everything turned out. Looking backward gives you information that your earlier self did not possess. It is unfair to judge that person as if they were supposed to see the future. Accepting this does not mean denying responsibility. When you truly made a mistake, you can admit it. You can learn, apologize where possible, repair what remains repairable, and live differently. But responsibility has an end. Endless self-punishment repairs nothing. There is a difference between regret that teaches and regret that imprisons. One says, I understand more clearly now. The other says, I must suffer forever because I did not understand then. Stoicism asks you to choose the lesson without building your identity around the punishment. You are allowed to become wiser without remaining wounded in the same way. As you lie here, let the breath become a quiet practice of acceptance. The inhale receives the moment as it is. The exhale releases the demand that it should be something else. You are here. The past is behind you. The pain may still be present, but the battle against reality can begin to end. Let each breath separate the original wound from everything the mind added afterward. The blame, the endless questions, the imagined alternatives, the belief that peace must wait until the past somehow changes. Peace does not require a different past. It requires a different relationship with the past. You do not have to carry every memory into every new day. You do not have to consult your pain before allowing yourself to feel joy. A peaceful moment is not disrespectful to what you lost. Laughter does not erase love. Rest does not erase sorrow. Moving forward does not mean leaving everything meaningful behind. Some things can travel with you in gentler forms. Love can become gratitude. Loss can become tenderness. Regret can become wisdom. Pain can become a deeper understanding of what other people silently carry. This transformation cannot be forced. It begins when resistance loosens enough for the pain to change naturally. So tonight, do not ask yourself to be finished with grief. Ask only whether you are willing to stop fighting the fact that grief exists. Let it be present without becoming your ruler. Let it speak without believing every conclusion it gives you. Let it pass through the body without turning it into a permanent home. The Stoics knew that freedom begins when we stop demanding control over what life has already decided. What happened belongs to fate, time, and the choices that cannot now be undone. What you become from here still belongs in part to you. And in this quiet moment, you may finally loosen your grip on the life that should have been, so your hands are free to receive the life that is still here. And as the struggle against the past begins to loosen, another truth may quietly come into view. The exhaustion you have been calling laziness may not be laziness at all. The tiredness that follows you from morning to night may be carrying a sorrow you never had the time, safety, or permission to feel. Some people sleep for 8 hours and still wake as though they have been working all night. Their eyes open, but their energy does not return. Their body leaves the bed, yet something inside remains heavy. Simple tasks feel larger than they should. A conversation requires preparation. A phone call feels like work. Even things they once enjoyed seem to ask for strength they no longer have. This kind of tiredness can be confusing because it does not always look like grief. There may be no tears. There may be no clear memory rising to the surface. You may not spend each day thinking about the person, relationship, home, dream, or former life you lost. You may believe you have already moved forward because you continued working, caring for others, and completing what needed to be done. But continuing is not always the same as processing. Sometimes the mind places grief in a quiet corner so life can go on. It does this because there are moments when falling apart does not feel possible. A parent still has children to feed. A worker still has duties to complete. A family may depend on the one person who seems strongest. The world may praise you for how well you handled everything, never realizing that your body was paying the cost of keeping you functional. You learn to carry sorrow without showing it. That carrying requires energy. It takes energy to hold back tears when a familiar song begins. It takes energy to avoid the subject that might break your composure. It takes energy to smile during celebrations when someone important is missing. It takes energy to act normal around people who do not understand how completely your inner world has changed. Even silence can become exhausting when it must be maintained every day. The tiredness may begin shortly after the loss, or it may appear much later. During the first days of pain, the body can enter a state of urgency. There are calls to make, arrangements to handle, questions to answer, and people to comfort. You may move through those days with surprising strength because your system is focused on survival. Then the urgency ends. The visitors leave. The messages become less frequent. Other people return to their routines. The world expects you to do the same. That is often when the exhaustion arrives. It can feel as though your strength suddenly disappeared, but perhaps your body was waiting until the emergency passed before revealing how much it had spent. It carried you through the moment. Now it is asking for the rest, care, and attention that were delayed. Yet many people respond by becoming harder on themselves. They say, "I should be doing more." They compare today's energy with the person they were before the loss. They call themselves weak because ordinary tasks have become difficult. They push through the tiredness, filling every quiet space with work, noise, or responsibility. But grief is not impressed by productivity. It doesn't leave simply because your calendar is full. When it receives no direct attention, it may continue appearing through heaviness, forgetfulness, low motivation, and the desire to withdraw from everything. This does not mean every form of tiredness is caused by grief. Physical exhaustion can have many causes, and persistent or severe fatigue deserves proper medical attention. But when rest never seems to reach the deepest part of you, it may be worth asking what your tiredness has been protecting you from feeling. Perhaps you are not only tired from what you do, perhaps you are tired from what you refuse to let yourself know. There may be anger beneath the exhaustion. You may be angry that someone left too soon, that another person failed you, or that you had to become strong during a time when you needed support. Because anger felt unacceptable, you may have pushed it down until it lost its heat and became heaviness. There may be guilt beneath it. You may believe you should have done more, noticed something earlier, chosen different words, or prevented an outcome that was never fully within your control. The mind continues reviewing the past as though another examination might produce a different ending. This silent trial consumes energy, even when you are not consciously aware that it is happening. There may also be longing beneath the tiredness. Longing is not always loud. Sometimes it appears as a loss of interest in the present because part of you remains turned toward what is gone. The world continues offering new moments, but they may feel pale beside the life you remember. You are physically here, yet your heart may still be waiting at an old door. The Stoics did not teach people to deny these feelings. They taught that clear attention is the beginning of inner freedom. What remains unnamed can quietly direct your life. What you are willing to face becomes something you can meet with wisdom. So instead of treating exhaustion as an enemy, listen to what it may be saying. It may be saying, "I have carried too much for too long." It may be saying, "I need a pause that does not have to be earned." It may be saying, "There is sorrow here, and staying busy is no longer enough." This listening does not require you to search through every painful memory tonight. You do not have to force yourself to cry. Tears are one expression of grief, not the only proof that grief is real. Your task is simply to stop dismissing what the body is communicating. Begin by releasing the belief that rest is a reward for finishing everything. Everything will never be finished. There will always be another message, another responsibility, another room to clean, another problem waiting for attention. If rest can only come after life becomes completely settled, rest will always be delayed. Stoic discipline is not constant effort without mercy. True discipline includes knowing when effort has stopped being useful. A wise person does not continue pulling a rope after realizing it is tied to something that cannot be moved. Tonight, the task is not to push harder. It is to stop spending strength on appearing untouched. You do not need to perform wellness in this room. You do not need to convince anyone that you are fine. You do not need to organize your grief into a perfect explanation. Let the body be tired without immediately calling the tiredness a problem. There is a kind of rest that goes beyond sleep. It begins when you no longer have to hide from yourself. Let your face become free from the expression you wear for other people. Let your shoulders release the duty of looking capable. Let your breathing return to its natural rhythm. For these moments, no one is measuring your productivity. No one is waiting for you to solve anything. The mind may still try to create a list for tomorrow. It may remind you of unfinished work or warn that slowing down will cause life to fall apart. This is the old belief that your value depends on how much you can carry. But you were worthy before you became useful to anyone. You remain worthy when your energy is low. You remain worthy when you cannot be the strongest person in the room. You remain worthy when you need what you have so freely given to others. The exhaustion may also contain years of delayed goodbyes. Not every loss involved death. You may be grieving a friendship that faded, a marriage that changed, children who grew distant, a career that ended, a body that no longer moves as it once did, or a future that will never arrive in the form you expected. These losses can remain invisible because other people may not recognize them as grief. They may tell you to be grateful for what remains. Gratitude can be healing, but it should not be used to silence sorrow. You can appreciate your present life and still mourn what is missing. Two truths can live in the same heart. You can be thankful and tired. You can be hopeful and sad. You can accept what happened and still wish it had been different. The Stoic mind makes room for complexity without becoming ruled by it. It does not demand that you choose between strength and sorrow. It understands that honest sorrow can be part of strength. As you rest, consider what might happen if you stopped using all your energy to outrun grief. The feeling may not destroy you. It may simply rise, become known, and slowly change. A memory may appear. A name may come to mind. A heaviness may move through your chest. You do not have to hold it, explain it, or send it away. Let it be present for one breath, then another. Tell yourself, this is grief. It is painful, but it is not dangerous. The body may have confused emotional pain with a threat that requires constant preparation. Your calm attention teaches it something new. It shows the nervous system that sadness can be felt without losing control. It shows the mind that a memory can return without becoming the present. Each time you allow a feeling without fighting or fleeing, you spend less energy keeping it buried. This is how the deeper tiredness may begin to soften. Not through forcing yourself to become energetic. Not through criticizing the body into action. Not through pretending the loss no longer matters. It softens because the work of hiding is ending. Your energy may not return all at once. Grief has its own pace. Some mornings may still feel slow. Some days may require less from you. Healing does not turn the body into a machine that never grows tired. It helps you tell the difference between tiredness that needs ordinary sleep and tiredness that needs emotional truth. Tonight, offer yourself both. Let sleep care for the body. Let honesty care for the heart. You have carried this sorrow through enough busy mornings and silent evenings. You have used strength to survive it. Now you can use gentleness to process it. Nothing is demanded of you here. You do not need to recover before dawn. You only need to stop abandoning yourself in the name of continuing. And as the night holds what you no longer have the strength to hide, the tiredness may finally begin to reveal its message. It was never asking you to give up on life. It was asking you to stop living as though your grief required no care. And as the deeper exhaustion begins to reveal the grief beneath it, another sorrow may rise from a place you have kept waiting for years. It is the pain of words that should have been spoken to you, but may never come. Some wounds remain open because part of the heart is still waiting at the door. Waiting for someone to return and admit what they did. Waiting for them to say they were wrong. Waiting to hear that your pain was real, that you did not deserve it, and that they finally understand what their choices cost you. Perhaps the apology should have come from a parent who made you feel unwanted, a partner who betrayed your trust, a friend who disappeared when you needed them most, a relative who watched you suffer and chose silence. Someone may have changed the course of your life, then continued living as though nothing happened. You may have carried the consequences while they carried no visible regret. That can create a very particular kind of sorrow. It is not only grief for the original hurt, it is grief for the repair that never followed. You were wounded once by what happened, then wounded again each time the person refused to acknowledge it. The mind may keep returning to the same unfinished conversation. You may think of the exact words you would say if they finally listened. You may picture their face changing as they understand the truth. You may rehearse the moment when they lower their pride and offer the apology you have waited so long to receive. In that imagined moment, something inside you finally relaxes. You feel seen, you feel believed, you feel released. But morning comes and the apology still has not arrived. This waiting can quietly take control of your peace. It places your healing in the hands of the very person who helped create the wound. It tells you that you cannot fully move forward until they give you permission through their remorse. The Stoics would ask you to look carefully at what belongs to you and what does not. Their apology does not belong to you. You may deserve it. You may have earned it through years of pain. It may be the fair and honorable thing for them to give. But you cannot force another person to become honest, humble, or self-aware. You cannot control whether they remember the event as you do. You cannot command them to care about the damage. You cannot make someone face a truth they have spent years avoiding. This is painful because justice feels incomplete when wrongdoing is never admitted. The heart wants the world to place the truth where everyone can see it. It wants the person responsible to carry at least some of the weight you were forced to carry alone. Yet some people protect themselves through denial. They rewrite the past. They minimize what happened. They call you too sensitive. They say they were doing their best, as though effort automatically erased the harm. They may focus on your reaction instead of their behavior. They may even present themselves as the injured person because your honesty threatens the image they have built of themselves. Their refusal to apologize does not prove that your pain was false. It may only prove that they are not ready to face it. This distinction matters. When someone refuses to acknowledge your experience, you may begin doubting yourself. You may wonder whether you misunderstood the situation or expected too much. You may examine every detail, searching for evidence that gives you the right to feel what you feel. But pain does not need the offender's agreement to be real. You do not need their confession before you can trust your own memory. You do not need their approval before you can say, "That hurt me." Releasing the need for an apology does not mean pretending the person was innocent. It means refusing to make your inner freedom depend on their growth. This is not easy. The apology represents more than words. It represents recognition. It says that someone finally sees the part of you that suffered in silence. It says that the burden was never yours alone. So when the apology never comes, you may feel as though you have been left to carry both the injury and the proof of it. This is where you must begin giving yourself what they could not give. You can recognize the harm. You can believe the younger version of yourself. You can say the words you needed someone else to say. What happened to you mattered. Your feelings made sense. You deserved greater care. You should not have had to become strong in that way. These words may seem simple, but they return authority to your own experience. They stop the person who hurt you from being the final judge of whether your wound deserves compassion. The Stoic path does not ask you to erase your desire for justice. It asks you not to sacrifice the rest of your life to a verdict that may never come. Justice can take different forms. Sometimes it arrives through an honest apology and changed behavior. Sometimes it arrives through distance. Sometimes it appears when you break the pattern and refuse to treat others as you were treated. Sometimes justice is the life you build after someone tried to teach you that you were powerless. Their remorse is one possible form of repair, but it is not the only one. You can create boundaries even if they never understand why. You can stop returning to conversations that only leave you more wounded. You can refuse to explain your pain to someone committed to misunderstanding it. You can choose not to offer endless access to a person simply because they are connected to you by history, family, or memory. A boundary is not revenge. It is an honest response to what you have learned. There may also be an apology you are waiting to receive from someone who is no longer alive. This kind of grief carries its own silence. There can be no new conversation, no changed behavior, and no final moment of understanding. You may feel guilty for being angry with someone who has died. Other people may remember only their good qualities, leaving you alone with the parts of the relationship that caused pain. But death does not turn every action into kindness. You are allowed to hold a complete memory. You can love what was good and grieve what was harmful. You can miss someone while still wishing they had treated you differently. These truths do not cancel one another. When no apology is possible, you may need to grieve the hope of receiving it. This is not the same as saying you no longer deserved it. It is accepting that the waiting itself has become another source of suffering. There comes a moment when the heart must decide whether it will remain seated beside an empty chair. Releasing the weight may feel like losing the apology twice. First, you did not receive it. Then you must let go of the hope that one day you will. Allow that sorrow to be real. You are not only releasing words, you are releasing the future scene in which everything finally makes sense. You are releasing the belief that one perfect conversation will return what was taken from you. Perhaps no apology could fully do that. Words may validate the pain, but they cannot give back lost years. They cannot restore innocence, rebuild every broken trust, or erase what your body learned during the experience. This does not make apologies meaningless. It simply means your healing must become larger than the words you were denied. You may also notice that you have built an inner courtroom around the person who hurt you. Each memory becomes another piece of evidence. Each new conversation becomes another chance to prove your case. You want the final judgment to declare that you were right to feel wounded. But living as a permanent witness against someone keeps you connected to them. Even anger can become a rope. You may believe you are holding them accountable while your mind remains tied to their choices every day. Releasing this rope does not clear them of responsibility. It releases you from the duty of conducting the same trial forever. The truth does not become less true because you stop arguing for it. Tonight, allow yourself to step outside that courtroom. You do not need to present the evidence again. You do not need to convince an absent judge. You know what happened. You know how it changed you. You know what you needed and did not receive. Let that knowledge become quiet certainty rather than endless debate. There may be anger when you do this. Let the anger speak honestly without allowing it to choose your future. Anger can reveal where a boundary was crossed. It can show you what mattered and what should never be repeated. But anger was meant to deliver a message, not become your permanent home. Ask what it has been trying to protect. Perhaps it protects the child who was never defended. Perhaps it protects the adult who kept forgiving without seeing change. Perhaps it protects the truth that you deserved better. Thank it for that message. Then remind it that you can protect yourself now through choices, not constant inner conflict. You do not have to keep the wound fresh to remember the lesson. You do not have to remain bitter to prove that what happened was wrong. You do not have to forgive before you are ready, and forgiveness does not have to mean renewed trust or closeness. It may simply mean that you no longer want the person to occupy so much space inside you. Forgiveness, when it comes, is not a reward for the person who caused harm. It is the decision to stop drinking from the same painful memory every day. And if forgiveness is not possible tonight, begin with something smaller. Release the expectation that they will become the person who gives you peace. Let peace begin elsewhere. Let it begin in your refusal to abandon your own truth. Let it begin in the boundaries you now respect. Let it begin in the gentleness you offer the part of you that waited so patiently to be acknowledged. You may never hear, "I am sorry." You may never hear, "You were right." You may never see regret in their eyes, but you can still say, "I will not spend the rest of my life waiting for you to understand what I already know." The apology was theirs to give. The healing is yours to reclaim. And as the night grows still, you can let the empty doorway close at last. Not because the words no longer matter, but because your life matters too much to remain paused until they arrive. And after releasing the hope of hearing words that may never come, another question may quietly rise. Why does the body still react as though the loss is happening now, even when the mind understands that the moment has passed? You may know exactly what happened. You may have spoken about it, accepted it, and built a life around the empty space it left behind. You may no longer think about it every day, yet a sound, a date, a familiar place, or an unexpected silence can make your chest tighten before you understand why. The mind says, "I am all right." The body says, "Stay ready." This does not mean you have failed to move forward. It means the body learned the loss through experience, not explanation. The thinking mind understands through words, facts, and time. It can look at a calendar and see that years have passed. It can explain why the relationship ended, why the person could not stay, or why the life you once knew had to change. The body remembers differently. It remembers the sudden drop in your stomach when the news arrived. It remembers the room where everything changed. It remembers the long night when sleep would not come. It remembers how your breathing changed when you realized that nothing would return to the way it had been. These reactions were not chosen. They were the body's attempt to protect you from being surprised again. Loss teaches the nervous system that what feels secure can disappear. Before the loss, you may have believed that certain people would always be there. Certain routines seemed permanent. Certain places felt safe simply because they were familiar. Then something changed, perhaps without warning, and the body learned a painful lesson. Comfort can be interrupted. After that, it may begin watching for the next interruption. You may notice this in the way you struggle to relax when life is going well. A peaceful day may feel suspicious. A loving relationship may awaken fear instead of comfort. Happiness may be followed by the thought that something bad is about to happen. The body is not trying to ruin your joy. It is trying to prevent another shock. It believes that staying prepared will make the next loss hurt less. So it scans expressions, listens for changes in someone's voice, and notices every delay in a message. It may turn ordinary distance into a warning and small changes into signs of abandonment. This constant guarding can continue even when the mind knows there is no immediate danger. Perhaps someone you love leaves the house, and a sudden fear rises that they will not return. Perhaps a friend becomes quiet, and your body prepares for rejection. Perhaps you feel a small physical symptom, and the mind immediately travels toward the worst possible outcome. These reactions can seem unreasonable when viewed only through logic, but the body is not making a calm prediction. It is responding to an old lesson. It is saying, "I was not ready last time. I will not be unprepared again." The painful truth is that guarding cannot prevent every loss. You can watch carefully, plan wisely, and love responsibly, yet life will still contain change. People will make choices you cannot control. Bodies will age. Relationships will take new forms. Seasons will end, even when you wish they would remain. The Stoics understood this uncertainty. They did not respond by refusing attachment or becoming cold. They practiced remembering that everything they loved was precious, partly because it was not guaranteed. This was not meant to create fear. It was meant to create presence. When you accept that a moment cannot be owned forever, you become more able to live inside it while it is here. You listen more carefully. You speak with greater honesty. You stop delaying kindness. You appreciate without demanding permanence. Guarding loss does the opposite. It pulls your attention away from what is present and places it inside an imagined future. The person is beside you, but part of you is already preparing for their absence. The day is peaceful, but the body is waiting for peace to break. In trying to avoid future grief, you may lose contact with present love. The body must slowly learn that uncertainty is not the same as immediate danger. It learns this through repeated experiences of safety, not through one powerful thought, but through small moments in which you notice fear without obeying it. A message is delayed, and you allow yourself to wait before assuming the worst. Someone you love needs space, and you remember that distance is not always abandonment. A happy moment arrives, and you let yourself enjoy it without searching for the hidden price. Each of these moments gives the body new evidence. It says, change does not always mean disaster. It says, uncertainty can be uncomfortable without being dangerous. It says, I can remain present even when I cannot control what comes next. This process requires patience because the body may have guarded you for years. It may not surrender its position simply because you tell it that everything is fine. And perhaps everything is not completely fine. There may still be real uncertainty. There may still be difficult circumstances. Stoic calm is not built by lying to yourself about reality. It is built by meeting reality without adding every possible tragedy to the current moment. You do not need proof that nothing painful will ever happen again. No one can give you that proof. You need trust that if pain comes, you will meet it when it arrives. This is different from trusting life to remain easy. It is trusting yourself to remain present, thoughtful, and supported through whatever changes. The body guards loss when it doubts your ability to survive another one. Remind it of what you have already survived. Not to glorify suffering, not to say the pain made everything better, simply to remember that you are still here. There were days when you believed you could not continue, yet you continued one breath at a time. There were mornings when the weight felt impossible, yet you rose. You learned things you never wanted to learn. You carried emotions you never asked to carry. The fact that you survived does not mean you should have had to suffer. It means the body no longer needs to treat you as helpless. You have more wisdom now. You may have stronger boundaries. You may understand your needs more clearly. You may know which people can offer support and which people cannot. You are not standing in the past with the same knowledge and choices you had then. The old fear may still arrive, but the person meeting it has changed. Tonight, when the body tightens around the possibility of loss, do not argue with it. Harshness only gives it another reason to remain alert. Speak to it as you would speak to someone who has spent too long standing at a locked door. Tell it, thank you for trying to protect me. Tell it, there is nothing I must solve in this moment. Tell it, I will face tomorrow when tomorrow arrives. Let these words move slowly through you. Notice where guarding appears. It may live in the chest as a pressure that makes full breathing difficult. It may appear in the stomach as a restless feeling with no clear cause. It may keep the ears alert to every sound in the house. Do not demand that these sensations disappear. Place your attention near them without turning them into a problem. Let the body feel that it is being accompanied rather than examined. You are not searching for evidence that something is wrong. You are offering presence to a system that has spent too long expecting danger. A guarded body needs consistency more than commands. It needs calm nights in which nothing is demanded of it. It needs mornings where you do not punish yourself for moving slowly. It needs relationships where your feelings are not mocked, dismissed, or used against you. It needs boundaries that prove you will no longer remain in every harmful situation simply to avoid losing someone. Sometimes the body keeps guarding because your present life still resembles the past. You may still be surrounded by unpredictability. You may still silence your needs around certain people. You may still ignore warning signs because separation feels more frightening than discomfort. Healing is not only about calming yourself inside unsafe conditions. Sometimes it requires changing the conditions you can change. Stoicism does not mean tolerating everything. It means acting wisely within the part of life that belongs to you. You cannot control another person's character, but you can decide how much access they have to your peace. You cannot guarantee that no relationship will end, but you can refuse to abandon yourself to keep one. Each act of self-respect tells the body, I will protect us differently now. Not through constant fear, not through watching every door, not through expecting the worst before joy can begin, but through awareness, boundaries, courage, and the willingness to respond when something real occurs. The body may still remember the loss. It does not need to forget. Forgetting is not the goal. The goal is to help the memory become information instead of an alarm. The past can teach you without controlling your breathing. It can deepen your appreciation without making closeness unbearable. It can remind you that life changes without stealing every peaceful moment before that change comes. Tonight, let the guard rest for a little while. Nothing precious is protected by your exhaustion. No future pain is prevented by refusing the present. You can loosen your grip without becoming careless. You can love without pretending that love guarantees permanence. You can rest without knowing exactly what tomorrow will bring. The mind may have moved forward through understanding. Now the body can begin moving forward through safety. One quiet breath. One unclenched hand, one moment in which nothing is leaving. And perhaps, as the night continues, the part of you that has watched over every possible loss will finally understand that it does not have to stand alone anymore. You are here now. You are listening. And whatever life brings, you will meet it when it arrives, not before. And as the body begins to trust that it does not have to prepare for every future loss, a quieter grief may step forward. It is not grief for one person, one ending, or one painful day. It is grief for the years that passed while you were only trying to survive them. There are seasons of life you may remember only through pressure. You remember what had to be paid, who had to be protected, which problem came next. How little sleep you received, how often you told yourself to keep going because stopping was not an option. You were present in those years, but you may not have felt alive inside them. You woke with duties already waiting. You moved from one demand to another. You measured a good day by whether nothing terrible happened. Joy became something you would return to later, when life became easier, when the children were older, when the money improved, when the conflict ended, when the grief softened. But later kept moving. Years can pass this way, not because you did not value life, but because life required so much of you that there was little strength left to experience it. Survival narrowed your attention. It taught you to look only at what was urgent. Beauty could wait. Rest could wait. Curiosity could wait. Your own needs could wait. You may have become skilled at enduring. People may have admired your strength. They may have called you dependable, responsible, or brave. They saw that you kept the family together, stayed through hardship, completed the work, or carried burdens that would have broken someone else. What they may not have seen was what that strength cost you. Perhaps you stopped asking what you wanted because wanting felt like a luxury. Perhaps you gave up hobbies that made you feel alive. Perhaps you stayed in places where your spirit grew smaller because leaving seemed impossible. You may have spent so much time solving emergencies that you forgot what a peaceful life was supposed to feel like. Now, looking back, sadness may rise. You may wonder where the time went. You may see old photographs and barely recognize the person smiling in them. You know what happened before the picture and what happened afterward. You remember the worry behind the expression. You remember how hard you were trying to appear all right. This grief can carry regret. You may think, I should have enjoyed those years more. I should have been more present. I should have left sooner. I should have chosen myself. But the person looking backward has knowledge the person living through those years did not have. It is easy to judge survival from the safety of distance. At the time, you were responding to the choices, pressures, fears, and responsibilities that surrounded you. You cannot fairly compare what you know now with what you understood then. The Stoics taught that wisdom begins with seeing reality clearly. Clear sight includes recognizing your mistakes, but it also includes refusing to create guilt where compassion is more truthful. Perhaps you did miss important moments. Perhaps fear kept you in situations longer than necessary. Perhaps you placed duty above happiness until duty became your identity. You can acknowledge these things without turning your past self into an enemy. That person was trying to get you here. They may not have known how to live freely. They may not have believed freedom was available. They may have confused self-neglect with love because that was what they had been taught. They may have believed that good people always stayed, always gave, always endured, and never complained. They survived using the tools they had. You can grieve what those tools could not give you without hating the hands that used them. Mourning lost years is painful because time cannot be returned. Money can sometimes be earned again. Relationships can sometimes be repaired. Homes can be rebuilt. But an afternoon from 20 years ago cannot be placed back into your hands. This truth deserves honesty. Stoic acceptance does not ask you to pretend that time is unlimited. It asks you to stop wasting the time that remains by fighting the time that is gone. The past has already taken its portion. Do not offer it the present as well. There is a danger in looking back too long. Regret can make you believe that because part of life was spent surviving, the rest has already been decided. You may tell yourself that it is too late to begin again, too late to enjoy simple things, too late to discover who you are without constant pressure. But being late is not the same as being finished. Life does not need to become large or dramatic before it can feel real again. You do not have to recover every missed dream. You do not need to travel everywhere, change everything, or become someone completely new. Living can begin through smaller acts. You can sit with a morning instead of rushing through it. You can taste your food instead of eating while thinking about the next responsibility. You can call someone because you want connection, not because there is a problem to solve. You can return to music you once loved. You can learn what makes you laugh now. These acts may seem ordinary, but survival often takes away the ordinary first. It turns every hour into a task. Reclaiming life means allowing some moments to have no purpose beyond being experienced. You may feel guilty when you begin. A person who has spent years being useful can feel uncomfortable doing something simply because it brings pleasure. Rest may feel selfish. Play may feel childish. A quiet afternoon may create anxiety because part of you believes you should be preparing for the next crisis. This is another habit learned through survival. The body may treat peace as wasted time because it became familiar with urgency. It may only feel valuable when solving, carrying, fixing, or helping. Without a problem, you may not know who you are. Let that uncertainty be part of the process. You are not becoming useless. You are discovering that usefulness was never the whole of you. You were not born only to manage pain, rescue others, and complete duties. You were also made to notice, wonder, connect, create, and rest. These parts may have been neglected, but they are not gone. The Stoics valued purposeful action, but they also understood that life is happening in the present. A person who postpones peace until every problem is solved may never experience peace at all. There will always be something unfinished. Someone may always need help. The world will continue producing demands. Wisdom is not waiting until nothing needs you. It is learning that not every demand deserves the whole of you. Perhaps the years of survival taught you that saying no would cause everything to collapse. You became the person who held the family, workplace, or relationship together. Others learned to rely on your endurance. Now, choosing to live may require disappointing some of those expectations. You may need to stop fixing problems that belong to other adults. You may need to let a call go unanswered until you have rested. You may need to refuse another responsibility, even when you could technically manage it. Having the ability to carry something does not mean it is yours to carry. This can be difficult when your identity has been built around strength. People may praise your sacrifices while resisting your boundaries. They may prefer the version of you who always made room for them. But a life cannot be reclaimed without making space. Space in the calendar, space in the mind, space in relationships, space for desires that do not serve anyone else. As this space opens, grief may deepen before it softens. You may become more aware of what you missed. You may remember birthdays you barely enjoyed, places you never visited, conversations you were too tired to have, or opportunities you rejected because fear told you to remain practical. Do not use these memories to wound yourself. Let them teach you what you no longer want to postpone. Regret has value when it becomes direction. If you regret staying silent, speak more honestly now. If you regret never resting, protect your rest now. If you regret losing contact with people you loved, reach toward the relationships that can still be repaired. If you regret living according to fear, choose one small action that fear would normally delay. You cannot change the old years, but you can stop repeating their pattern. This is how grief becomes wisdom. It does not erase the loss. It gives the loss a purpose that serves the life still available. There may also be pride beneath the sorrow. You survived situations that once seemed impossible. You learned how to continue without guarantees. You developed patience, courage, and awareness through experiences you never would have chosen. You do not have to call the suffering good in order to recognize your strength. The hardship was hard, the cost was real, and you are still here. Both truths can stand together. Tonight, let yourself mourn without turning mourning into a sentence against the future. Feel sadness for the person who had to live with so little ease. Feel tenderness for the years when joy had to stand at the edge of the room. Tell that earlier version of you, you did what you knew how to do. Tell them, you carried us far enough. Tell them, I will not ask you to keep surviving forever. This is not a promise that life will never become difficult again. Hard seasons may still come. Loss, responsibility, and uncertainty are part of being human. But you can meet difficulty without making survival your permanent way of living. You can respond to a crisis without building your home inside urgency. You can support others without disappearing. You can endure what must be endured while still protecting small pieces of joy. The years ahead do not need to repay you for everything the past took. That demand would become another form of resistance. Life may not provide perfect balance or return every missed opportunity, but this moment is here. It has not yet been spent. The breath moving through you now does not belong to yesterday's fear. The quiet around you does not need to be filled with old duties. For these few moments, you are not surviving anything. You are resting. You are listening. You are alive. Let that be enough for tonight. Let the grief for the lost years pass through without convincing you that all meaningful time is gone. The fact that you can mourn how little you lived means a part of you still remembers what living feels like. That part is not accusing you. It is calling you back. And when morning arrives, you do not need to change your entire life. Begin with one moment you refuse to rush through. One choice made from desire instead of fear. One quiet act that reminds you that existence is more than endurance. You have survived long enough to reach this night. Now, gently and without punishment, you can begin learning how to live. And as you begin to step out of a life built only around survival, you may notice how much of your strength is still being spent on problems that were never truly yours to carry. Some burdens enter your life quietly. They arrive through a worried voice, a disappointed face, a family crisis, or a request that sounds small at first. Someone tells you what they are going through, and before the conversation ends, your body is tense. Your mind is already searching for answers. Their problem follows you into the evening, sits beside you at dinner, and enters the bed when you are trying to sleep. They may have shared the burden for a few minutes. You may carry it for days. Perhaps this has happened for so long that you no longer recognize it as a choice. You simply feel responsible when someone around you is unhappy. If a loved one struggles, you believe you must rescue them. If someone becomes upset with you, you assume it is your duty to restore their comfort. If a family member makes poor decisions, you begin planning how to protect them from the results. This can look like love. Sometimes it is fear wearing the clothes of love. You may fear what will happen if you stop helping. You may fear being called selfish, uncaring, or difficult. You may fear that someone will fail, leave, become angry, or tell others that you abandoned them. So you keep carrying. You give advice that is ignored, then return with more advice. You provide money that creates only temporary relief. You solve one emergency and another appears. You listen to the same complaint without seeing any change. You take responsibility for emotions, decisions, and consequences that belong to another adult. Over time, their burden becomes part of your identity. You become the person everyone calls when life goes wrong, the dependable one, the calm one, the one who knows what to do. People praise your strength, but few ask what happens to you after you have held everyone else together. You may feel proud of being needed. There is nothing wrong with helping. Kindness, loyalty, and generosity are valuable parts of a good life. But help becomes harmful when it removes another person's responsibility while destroying your peace. The Stoics placed great importance on knowing what belongs within your control. Your thoughts, choices, actions, and character belong to you. Another person's opinions, habits, reactions, and decisions do not. You can influence them, you can guide them, you can support them, but you cannot live their life from inside your own body. This boundary may sound simple, yet it can feel painful when someone you love is suffering. The heart wants to enter the struggle and remove it. A parent wants to protect a child from every mistake. A partner wants to stop someone they love from making a damaging choice. A friend wants to carry enough pain for two people so the other person does not have to feel alone. But some burdens are also teachers. When you repeatedly remove every consequence, you may prevent someone from meeting the lesson their own life is trying to teach. Your rescue may provide comfort today while delaying growth tomorrow. This does not mean becoming cold or refusing help when real help is needed. It means asking whether your support strengthens the person or makes them more dependent on your sacrifice. There is a difference between walking beside someone and carrying them when they are capable of walking. Walking beside them says, "I care about you, and I believe you can face this." Carrying them says, "Your life cannot continue unless I take control." One offers support. The other slowly creates exhaustion, resentment, and helplessness. You may not intend to send that message. You may simply be doing what you learned in childhood. Perhaps you grew up in a home where you had to watch everyone's mood. You learned that peace depended on keeping one person calm. You became skilled at predicting anger, preventing conflict, and adjusting yourself to protect the room. This may have made you unusually sensitive to other people's distress. A change in someone's voice can make your stomach tighten. Their disappointment can feel like an accusation. Their silence can send your mind searching for what you did wrong. You may call this empathy, but empathy does not require you to absorb every emotion around you. You can understand someone's pain without making it your own. You can sit beside sadness without carrying it home. You can care deeply while allowing another person to be responsible for what they do next. The Stoic practice begins with a quiet question. Whose burden is this? If the burden is yours, meet it honestly. If you made a mistake, take responsibility. If you gave your word, honor it. If your actions caused harm, repair what you can. But if the burden belongs to another person's choices, return it with respect. Returning a burden does not require a dramatic speech. Sometimes it begins inside your own mind. You stop replaying their problem after the conversation ends. You stop planning solutions they did not request. You stop believing their discomfort is proof that you have failed. You remind yourself, "I can care without taking control." This sentence may feel unfamiliar. Your mind may answer, "But what if something goes wrong?" Something may go wrong. Another person may make a choice you would not make. They may reject your advice. They may remain in a situation you believe is harmful. They may need to experience disappointment before they are willing to change. You cannot prevent every painful outcome without becoming the prisoner of someone else's life. Stoic wisdom does not promise that detachment will make every situation end well. It teaches that your peace cannot depend on controlling outcomes that were never yours to command. You are responsible for offering what is wise and honest. You are not responsible for forcing another person to accept it. This is especially important when someone repeatedly brings you the same burden, but refuses every possible step toward change. They may want relief without responsibility. They may want you to agree that they are powerless. They may use your attention as a place to unload emotions they are unwilling to examine. Listening once may be kindness. Listening without limit can become participation in the pattern. You are allowed to say, "I care about you, but I cannot keep having the same conversation when nothing changes." You are allowed to say, "I believe this decision is yours." You are allowed to say, "I cannot solve this for you." These words are not rejection. They are a return of ownership. Healthy love does not require one person to remain exhausted so another person can avoid discomfort. There may also be burdens placed on you through blame. Someone may refuse responsibility by making their emotions your fault. They may say you made them angry, force them to behave badly, or cause their unhappiness because you set a boundary. You can listen to criticism and examine your behavior honestly, but you do not have to accept every accusation simply because it is spoken with strong emotion. Another person's feeling is real. Their explanation of that feeling may not be accurate. They may be disappointed because you said no. That disappointment belongs to them. You can respect it without reversing a wise decision. They may be angry because you stopped providing what they had grown used to receiving. Their anger does not automatically make your boundary wrong. They may call you selfish because your limits no longer serve them. Their opinion is not the final measure of your character. The Stoic asks, did I act with honesty, fairness, courage, and self-respect? If the answer is yes, you do not need every person to approve. This practice may reveal how often guilt has been used to keep burdens in your hands. Guilt can be helpful when it points toward a real wrong, but false guilt appears when you take responsibility for something that belongs elsewhere. You may feel guilty because someone is struggling, even though you did not cause the struggle. You may feel guilty because you have peace while someone else is unhappy. You may feel guilty for resting when another person refuses to manage their own life. This kind of guilt does not prove that you are doing something wrong. It may simply prove that you are doing something different. Your body is adjusting to a new boundary. At first, returning burdens may feel cruel because carrying them has been connected to your idea of goodness. You may believe a good parent never stops helping, a good partner always sacrifices, or a good friend is available at every hour. But goodness without wisdom becomes self-destruction. A lamp that gives all its oil in one night cannot provide light tomorrow. You are allowed to protect the strength from which your kindness comes. Tonight, notice whose voices are still living inside your mind. Whose problems are you solving in the dark? Whose reaction are you rehearsing? Whose future are you trying to control? Let each person return gently to their own life. You do not have to push them away. Simply place their responsibility back into their hands. Say silently, I care about you, but this choice is yours. I support you, but this lesson is yours. I love you, but this life is yours. Then notice what remains. Perhaps there is sadness. Perhaps there is fear. Perhaps your hands feel empty because you are no longer holding the role that made you feel necessary. Let the emptiness be there. Empty hands are not useless hands. They are hands that can finally rest. They are hands that can care without gripping. They are hands that can receive life instead of constantly managing it. You may discover that some people become stronger when you stop carrying what belongs to them. They begin making decisions, seeking proper help, accepting consequences, and learning to trust themselves. Others may resist. They may increase the pressure because the old arrangement benefited them. Their resistance does not mean you must return to the burden. A boundary often becomes clearest when someone tests it. Stay gentle, but remain steady. You do not need to defend the boundary through endless explanation. Every explanation can become another opening for negotiation. A simple truth can be enough. This is not something I can take on. I have given the help I am able to give. The next step belongs to you. Let those words stand. The Stoic life is not a life without care. It is care guided by reality. It recognizes that love cannot replace another person's will. Compassion cannot make someone change before they choose change. Sacrifice cannot guarantee gratitude, maturity, or a good outcome. You can offer your best. Then you must release what happens next. As the night deepens, allow your mind to set down the family problems, the unfinished conversations, the choices someone else must make, and the consequences you cannot prevent. They do not need to be solved before you sleep. You are not abandoning anyone by closing your eyes. You are returning to the small part of existence that is yours to govern. This breath, this thought, this response, this moment. Let others carry what life has placed in their hands. Let them discover their own strength. Let them meet their own truth. And let your body learn that love does not require endless burden. You can care without carrying everything. You can remain kind without becoming responsible for everyone. You can stand beside the people you love without disappearing beneath the weight of their lives. And as you begin returning other people's burdens to their rightful hands, another kind of emptiness may become easier to feel. It is the silence left by relationships that ended without explanation, without closure, and without one final chance to say what your heart was still carrying. Some people leave slowly, others disappear in a single moment. A friend stops calling, a partner becomes distant, a family member walks away after an argument, someone dies before the truth can be spoken. A relationship that once shaped your daily life becomes a collection of unanswered messages, unfinished sentences, and memories that no longer know where to belong. There is no final conversation, no clear ending, no moment when both people look at what happened and agree that it is over. The relationship simply becomes silent. This kind of loss can be especially difficult because the mind does not know where to place it. When an ending is clear, the heart may still break, but it has a fact to stand on. When there is no goodbye, hope and grief can remain tangled together. Part of you knows the relationship has ended. Another part continues listening for footsteps. You may check your phone without admitting what you hope to see. You may replay the final conversation, searching for a hidden meaning. You may wonder whether you should have called again, waited longer, spoken differently, or noticed the change sooner. The mind returns to the ending because it believes there must be one missing detail that will make everything understandable. But some relationships end without offering that detail. The person may not have possessed the courage to speak honestly. They may have avoided the discomfort of facing your pain. They may have chosen silence because silence allowed them to leave without taking responsibility for the damage. Sometimes people disappear because they do not know how to communicate what has changed inside them. Sometimes pride closes the door. Sometimes shame keeps them away. Sometimes life interrupts the relationship through illness, distance, or death before either person is ready. Whatever the reason, you are left with questions that may never receive answers. This absence of explanation can make you question the entire relationship. Was the love real? Did the friendship matter? Were the memories as meaningful to them as they were to you? How could someone who knew you so deeply leave as though you had never existed? These questions reach beyond the ending. They threaten the past itself. You may fear that because the person left badly, everything that came before must also have been false. But an ending does not always erase what was once real. A relationship can contain sincere love and still end through fear, weakness, misunderstanding, or change. A person can care for you and still lack the character to give you a respectful goodbye. Something can matter deeply and still fail to last. The Stoics understood that everything we are given is temporary. People enter our lives without signing a promise that they will remain forever. This truth is not meant to make love feel unsafe. It is meant to remind us that possession was never possible. You could share years with someone and still not control the final chapter. Their departure belongs to their choices, their circumstances, and the movement of life. What belongs to you is the way you carry what remains. When there is no final goodbye, the mind may try to create one. You may conduct imaginary conversations late at night. In one version, the person apologizes. In another, you finally say everything you were too afraid to say. You may picture yourself calm and powerful, offering the perfect words that would make them understand exactly what they lost. These conversations can provide temporary relief, but they can also keep the relationship active inside you. The person is absent from your life, yet they continue occupying your thoughts. You remain emotionally engaged in a conversation that can no longer move forward. Closure is often described as something another person gives you. They explain, they apologize, they answer every question. Then the heart is finally permitted to rest. But this places your peace in uncertain hands. The person who could not give you honesty during the relationship may not suddenly become capable of giving you perfect clarity at the end. Even if they offered an explanation, it might not satisfy you. Their reasons may seem incomplete, selfish, or painfully ordinary. No sentence can always make abandonment feel reasonable. Sometimes closure is not an answer. It is the decision to stop living inside the question. This does not mean pretending you no longer care. It means accepting that uncertainty may be part of the loss. You can say, "I may never understand why this ended as it did, but I understand that it has ended." That truth may feel heavy, yet it is often lighter than endless waiting. Mourning a relationship without a goodbye requires grieving more than the person. You must also grieve the conversation you expected to have, the future reconciliation, the final embrace, the moment when everything would be acknowledged. You may have kept these possibilities alive because releasing them felt like choosing the ending yourself. As long as you waited, perhaps the story was not completely over, but waiting can become a way of refusing the life that has continued without them. There comes a time when hope no longer protects the heart. It prevents the heart from returning home. The Stoic practice is not to destroy hope through bitterness. It is to place hope where your influence still exists. Instead of hoping that someone returns and repairs the past, you can hope to become peaceful even if they do not. Instead of hoping for their explanation, you can seek your own understanding. Instead of waiting for them to honor what you shared, you can honor it without allowing it to imprison you. You may begin by acknowledging what the relationship gave you. Perhaps it offered companionship during a lonely season. Perhaps it taught you trust, patience, courage, or the importance of boundaries. Perhaps there were ordinary moments that remained precious, even though the ending was painful. You do not have to destroy every good memory in order to accept that the relationship is over. Bitterness may feel protective because it creates distance from longing. You may tell yourself that the person never cared, that every memory was a lie, or that you wasted all the years you shared. But reducing the entire relationship to its ending may create another kind of loss. You can remember the good without reopening the door. You can appreciate what was given without denying what was taken. You can hold a full truth. They mattered to you. They also hurt you. You wanted a goodbye. You did not receive one. All of these things can exist together. If the relationship ended through death, the silence may feel even more permanent. There may have been words you planned to say later, believing there would be more time. You may regret the final conversation because it seemed ordinary, rushed, or unfinished. Perhaps your last words were not the words you would have chosen if you had known. This regret can make one moment seem more powerful than the entire relationship. You may judge your love by one missed call, one unresolved disagreement, or one goodbye that did not feel complete. But love is not contained only in the final exchange. It also lived in the days before it. It lived in the care you offered, the memories you created, the ways you showed up, and the ordinary kindness that did not know it was becoming part of a final story. The last conversation does not have the authority to erase all the others. If you made a mistake, admit it with honesty. Let it teach you to speak sooner, love more openly, and stop postponing important words. But do not turn regret into a lifetime of punishment. You did not know which moment would be the last. Most people do not. Tonight, allow yourself to say the goodbye that reality did not allow. Not to the person as though you can control their response, but to the part of you that is still waiting for the conversation. You may speak silently. I wish we had ended differently. I wish you had explained. I wish I had said more. I wish there had been time. Let the words come without trying to make them beautiful. This is not a performance. it is an honest release. Then say what the heart may resist. I cannot continue waiting at this ending. This does not mean you will never think of them again. A relationship can end while its influence remains. Certain places may still remind you. A song may still create a sudden ache. You may hear news about them or dream of them years later. Memory is not a sign that you failed to let go. It is evidence that the relationship became part of your story. The goal is not to remove every trace. It is to stop treating every trace as a call to return. The Stoics taught that we suffer when we demand that temporary things become permanent, but they also understood that temporary does not mean meaningless. A sunset ends, yet its beauty was real. A season changes, yet what grew during it still mattered. The relationship may have completed its time in your life without completing every sentence. You may never know exactly why they left. You may never hear whether they missed you. You may never receive the final recognition you deserved. But you do not need every answer to recognize what the silence has already shown you. The relationship, in the form you knew it, is no longer present. You can stop arguing with that fact. You can stop searching old messages for a door that is not there. You can stop preparing a speech for someone who is not listening. You can stop confusing unfinished words with an unfinished life. There is still life beyond the conversation that never happened. There are people who can meet you with honesty. There are relationships where questions do not become weapons and silence is not used as punishment. There are future moments that deserve the attention you have been giving to an absent person. Before you can receive them, you may need to loosen your loyalty to the old ending. Sometimes we remain emotionally faithful to a lost relationship because moving forward feels like betrayal. We fear that peace will reduce the importance of what we shared, but peace does not erase meaning. It places meaning in its proper time. You can say, "This person was part of my life." You do not have to say, "Therefore they must remain at the center of it forever." As the night settles around you, picture the relationship not as an open door you must keep watching, but as a room you once lived in. There were conversations there. There was laughter, pain, closeness, and perhaps confusion. You can walk through that room in memory. You can notice what it gave you. Then you can step outside. You do not have to burn the room down. You simply do not have to sleep there anymore. Let the silence remain unanswered if it must. Let the final words remain unwritten. Let the person belong to the chapter in which they appeared. And let yourself belong to the life that continued after they left. The goodbye may never come from them. Tonight, it can come from you. Not as anger, not as denial, but as a quiet acceptance that love can be real, loss can remain painful, and your heart can still move forward without receiving the ending it deserved. And as you stop waiting for the goodbye that never came, the night may reveal something else that daylight has helped you avoid. When the calls end, when the work is finished, when the room becomes still, emotions that seemed absent may begin gathering near the surface. This is why some people fear quiet without knowing it. During the day, there is always somewhere for the mind to go. A task needs attention. A message needs an answer. Someone needs help. Food must be prepared. Money must be managed. The house must be cleaned. The next problem must be considered. Busyness gives the mind a direction. Stillness removes that direction. Then the feelings you postponed may finally have room to speak. You may lie down expecting sleep, only to feel sadness appear without warning. An old memory may return. A conversation from years ago may begin replaying. Your chest may feel heavy, even though the day seemed ordinary. You may become restless, reach for your phone, turn on the television, or search for anything that fills the silence. It can seem as though nighttime is creating the pain, But the darkness is not placing new grief inside you. It is removing the noise that kept you from noticing what was already there. Throughout the day, the mind can delay emotion because it believes something else is more urgent. This ability can be useful. You cannot always stop in the middle of a responsibility and process everything you feel. There are moments when attention must remain on what is directly in front of you. The problem begins when delay becomes disappearance. You tell yourself you will deal with the feeling later. Later becomes evening. Evening becomes another busy morning. Days become months. The emotion never receives a clear moment of attention, so it waits until your defenses are tired. Nighttime stillness can become the first open door it finds. This may be why you feel more emotional when everyone else is asleep. You are no longer performing strength. No one is watching your face. No one needs you to provide an answer. The roles you carry during the day become quieter. For a few hours, you are not only the parent, partner, worker, friend, helper, or responsible one. You are simply the person beneath those roles. That person may be carrying more than you realized. Perhaps there is sadness beneath your constant planning. Perhaps every task has helped you avoid the truth that your life changed in a way you still do not understand. Perhaps keeping the house busy has protected you from noticing how lonely it feels. Perhaps helping everyone else has prevented you from asking who is available when you need help. Busyness is not always ambition. Sometimes it is emotional shelter. The shelter may have helped you survive. It gave structure to days that might otherwise have felt empty. It protected you from being overwhelmed when the grief was too fresh to face directly. But a shelter can become a hiding place when you never leave it. You may begin feeling anxious whenever the calendar is open. You may create unnecessary tasks because resting brings discomfort. You may clean what is already clean, check messages that have not arrived, or solve problems that do not yet exist. The body learns that movement keeps emotion away, so when movement stops, the buried feelings can seem stronger. This does not mean stillness is dangerous. It means you have not yet learned to feel safe inside it. The Stoics practiced reflection because they understood that an unexamined mind can be ruled by hidden fears, judgments, and desires. They did not wait until life became perfectly calm before looking inward. They made space to notice what the day had awakened in them. This was not self-punishment, it was a return to clarity. Night can offer the same return. When a feeling appears, your first habit may be to ask how to make it leave. You may judge sadness as a problem, anger as a failure, and fear as proof that you are not healing. But emotions often become louder when they believe they are about to be rejected again. Instead of asking, "How do I stop this?" begin with, "What is here?" Perhaps what is here is loneliness. Perhaps it is disappointment. Perhaps it is anger you were not allowed to express. Perhaps it is longing for someone who cannot return. Perhaps it is relief that a painful relationship ended, mixed with guilt because you believe relief makes you cruel. The heart can hold emotions that seem to contradict one another. You can miss someone and feel safer without them. You can love someone and remain wounded by what they did. You can feel grateful for your life and still mourn what is absent. You can accept an ending and still experience pain when the room becomes quiet. Stoic clarity does not force these emotions into one simple answer. It allows you to see each one without becoming controlled by any of them. You may discover that some nighttime thoughts are not truths. They are emotions searching for explanations. Sadness may say, "Nothing will ever feel meaningful again." Fear may say, "You will always be alone." Regret may say, "One different choice would have fixed everything." These thoughts feel convincing because they arrive with strong emotion. But feeling something deeply does not automatically make every thought attached to it accurate. The Stoic practice is to separate the feeling from the conclusion. You can say, "I feel lonely tonight," without deciding, "I will always be alone." You can say, "I regret what happened," without declaring, "My entire life was ruined." You can say, "I am afraid," without assuming, "Danger is already here." This gentle separation creates space between you and the mind's darkest predictions. The emotion remains real. The prediction loses some of its authority. Nighttime often makes the future look smaller because the tired mind has less strength to hold perspective. Problems that seemed manageable in daylight can feel permanent in darkness. A delayed reply becomes rejection. A mistake becomes a ruined future. A lonely evening becomes evidence that no one cares. Do not make final judgments about your life from the most exhausted hour of the day. The night is a place for rest, not a courtroom where the entire meaning of your existence must be decided. When a heavy thought arrives, acknowledge it without giving it the final word. Say, "This feels true because I am tired." Say, "I do not have to solve this before sleep." Say, "Morning may show me what darkness is hiding." This is not avoidance. It is wisdom about timing. Some matters deserve reflection, but not every thought deserves a midnight trial. The mind may also use nighttime to return to conversations that cannot be changed. It may create better answers, sharper responses, and perfect explanations. You may finally say what you wish you had said, only to remember that the moment is gone. This replay can feel productive because the mind is active. Yet it may simply be trying to recover control over a situation where control was lost. You cannot return to the conversation, but you can listen to what the replay reveals. Perhaps you wish you had defended yourself. That may teach you to speak sooner next time. Perhaps you wish you had expressed love. That may teach you not to postpone tenderness. Perhaps you wish you had walked away. That may show you where a boundary is needed now. Take the lesson. Release the rehearsal. You do not need to repeat the scene all night to prove that it mattered. Stillness can also reveal grief through the body before the mind finds words. You may feel pressure in the chest, a hollow sensation in the stomach, or tears that arrive without a clear story. Do not force the sensation to explain itself. Not every emotion comes with a complete sentence. Sometimes the body knows only that something hurts. Place a gentle hand where the feeling appears. Let your breathing remain natural. You are not trying to remove the sensation. You are showing it that it no longer has to remain alone. This simple attention can become a new form of safety. For years, busyness may have said, "There is no time for you." Tonight, stillness can say, "You may be here." There may be discomfort at first. A room that has been locked for years may contain dust, forgotten objects, and things you are not ready to examine closely. You do not need to open every box. You do not need to remember everything. You do not need to understand the full history of your grief before you are allowed to rest. Choose one feeling. Name it gently. Let it exist without turning it into your identity. You are experiencing sadness. You are not made only of sadness. You are feeling fear. You are not becoming fear itself. An emotion is a visitor moving through awareness. It may stay longer than you prefer, but it is not the whole house. The Stoics taught that impressions arrive before judgment. You may not control the first feeling that enters, but you can influence the meaning you attach to it and the action that follows. The first wave may be grief. The next step can be compassion instead of panic. The first thought may be regret. The response can be wisdom instead of punishment. The first sensation may be loneliness. The response can be presence instead of desperate escape. This is how stillness becomes healing rather than threatening. You stop treating every emotion as a command. You let sadness speak without allowing it to design tomorrow. You let anger reveal a wound without allowing it to create another one. You let fear request care without permitting it to control your entire life. Night does not demand that you conquer what appears. It invites you to remain present while it passes. Perhaps tears will come. Let them come quietly if they need to. You do not have to explain them. You do not have to decide whether they are for one person, one memory, or all the years in which you kept moving. Tears may simply be the body ending a silence. Perhaps no tears come at all. That is also acceptable. Grief does not need to perform in order to be real. Stillness may reveal itself through a long exhale, a sudden memory, or a soft awareness that you have been carrying too much. Receive whatever arrives. Release the demand for a certain kind of healing. As you lie here, the outside world is becoming quieter. Let your inner world become honest without becoming cruel. You do not need to search for every buried wound. You do not need to force peace into existence. You only need to stop running from yourself for these few moments. Busyness helped you continue. Stillness can help you return, and when the emotions rise from the places where they have waited, meet them not as enemies that have come to disturb your sleep, but as forgotten parts of you asking to be witnessed at last. Listen without obeying every thought. Feel without losing yourself inside the feeling. Rest without demanding that everything be resolved. The night is not exposing your weakness. It is showing you what no longer wants to remain buried. And perhaps beneath all the noise you used to escape, there is not only sorrow waiting for you. There is also truth. There is tenderness. There is the beginning of a peace that can only arrive when nothing inside you has to hide. And as the night gives your hidden emotions permission to rise, another sorrow may come forward, the grief of all the moments when you had to become strong, even though what you truly needed was to be held, heard, and comforted. Some strength is chosen, other strength is forced upon you. It appears when life gives you no safe place to fall apart. Someone becomes ill, and you take charge. A family crisis begins, and everyone looks toward you. A relationship breaks, but there are children to protect. A person dies, yet arrangements must be made, and other people need reassurance. You may not have felt ready. You simply understood that if you stopped, everything around you might collapse. So you kept moving. You answered the calls. You made the decisions. You prepared the meals. You comforted the people who were grieving the same loss. You became the calm voice in the room while something inside you was shaking. Others may have praised you. They may have said, "You are so strong." They may have admired how well you handled everything. But perhaps those words did not feel like praise. Perhaps they felt like another responsibility. Once people see you as the strong one, they may stop asking whether you are hurting. They assume you will manage because you always have. They bring you their fear while forgetting that you have fear too. They lean on you without noticing how tired your own legs have become. You may have learned to say, "I am fine," before anyone finished asking. Not because you wanted to lie, but because telling the truth seemed complicated. If you admitted how much pain you were carrying, someone might become uncomfortable. They might offer quick advice, change the subject, or remind you that other people had it worse. Perhaps you feared that your sadness would become another problem you had to manage. It seemed easier to remain composed. This is how strength can become a lonely place. People see what you accomplish, but they do not see what it costs. They see you continue working, but not the moments when you sit alone and feel empty. They see your patience, but not the anger you swallow. They see the smile you use to protect others, but not the tears that wait until the room is dark. Over time, you may stop expecting comfort. You tell yourself that you do not need it. You become proud of needing very little. You handle your own pain privately and feel uneasy when someone tries to care for you. Kindness may even make you emotional because it reaches a part of you that has been neglected for too long. A gentle question can feel dangerous. A sincere embrace can awaken tears you have worked hard to contain. Someone saying, "You do not have to be strong with me," may touch a sorrow you did not know how to name. This does not mean you are weak. It means your need for comfort never disappeared. It was only postponed. Human beings are not meant to process every loss alone. We need people who can sit beside pain without rushing to repair it. We need voices that do not demand a quick recovery. We need someone who can witness our grief without making us feel ashamed for having it. But you may not have received that. Perhaps the people around you cared, but did not know how to show it. Perhaps they were fighting their own pain. Perhaps your family believed that emotions should remain private. Perhaps you were taught that crying solved nothing and that strong people simply continued. Those lessons may have helped you function. They may also have taught you to abandon yourself whenever you were hurting. Each time sorrow rose, you pushed it down. Each time exhaustion appeared, you worked harder. Each time you needed help, you reminded yourself that others depended on you. You turned away from your own pain before anyone else had the chance to turn away from it. The Stoic tradition is often misunderstood as a command to become hard. But the Stoics did not teach that feelings should be denied. They taught that pain could be faced without allowing it to destroy character. There is a difference between meeting grief with courage and pretending grief does not exist. Courage says, "This hurts, and I will remain present." Emotional denial says, "This must not hurt me." Courage allows tears and still chooses the next wise step. Denial treats every tear as failure. True Stoic strength is not the absence of tenderness. It is the ability to remain honest without losing your direction. You can be deeply hurt and still act with wisdom. You can need comfort and still possess courage. You can rest in another person's care without surrendering your independence. Needing support does not erase everything you have survived. It recognizes that survival was never meant to become a permanent performance. There may be grief for specific moments when no one came, a night when you wanted the phone to ring, a hospital visit you faced alone, a funeral where everyone received comfort from you while no one noticed your hands trembling, a difficult decision you made without guidance, a morning when you needed someone to say, "I will take care of this today." These memories may hurt because the comfort you needed belonged to a moment that cannot be repeated. Someone can support you now, but they cannot return to that exact room and stand beside the person you were then. This is part of what you are mourning. Not only the painful event, the loneliness inside it. Let yourself admit that you deserved comfort. You deserved someone who did not need you to explain everything perfectly. You deserved patience. You deserved to be asked twice when you said you were fine too quickly. You deserved care that did not disappear simply because you appeared capable. Acknowledging this does not make you ungrateful for the strength you developed. Your strength protected you. It carried you through days when comfort was unavailable. It helped you make decisions under pressure. It allowed you to care for people you loved. But a protection can become a prison when you are no longer permitted to remove it. You may now feel responsible for maintaining the image of strength. People expect you to have answers. They may feel unsettled when you express uncertainty or pain. You might fear that if you reveal your vulnerability, they will no longer respect you. Yet relationships built only around your strength cannot fully know you. They know what you provide. They know how dependable you are. They know the version of you who arrives with solutions. But do they know the person who sometimes needs reassurance? Do they know what frightens you? Do they know which memories still hurt? Do they know how to care for you when you have nothing useful to offer? To be truly known, you may need to let someone see what strength has hidden. This requires wisdom. Not every person deserves access to your deepest pain. Some people listen only to gather information. Others become impatient, dismissive, or controlling when they see vulnerability. Stoicism does not ask you to open your heart without judgment. It asks you to choose carefully. Look for people who do not make your pain about themselves. People who can listen without competing, correcting, or rushing you. People who respect silence. People who keep private things private. People whose actions remain steady after the emotional moment has passed. Comfort is not always found in perfect words. Sometimes it is someone sitting nearby without demanding conversation. Sometimes it is a warm meal placed in front of you. Sometimes it is a message that says, "You do not need to reply." Sometimes it is a person taking one ordinary responsibility from your hands. Sometimes comfort is simply being believed. You may need to learn how to receive these things. Receiving can feel uncomfortable when you are used to giving. You may immediately look for a way to repay kindness. You may reject help because accepting it makes you feel dependent. You may say, "I do not want to bother anyone," even when someone has freely offered support. But allowing care is not creating a debt. Healthy kindness is not a transaction. You have probably helped people without expecting them to prove their worth first. You allowed their need to be enough. Your own need can be enough too. Tonight, notice the part of you that still believes it must earn comfort. Perhaps it says you must finish your work first. Perhaps it says someone else is suffering more. Perhaps it says you chose this responsibility, so you have no right to feel tired. Let those thoughts pass without accepting their judgment. Pain does not become invalid because another person also hurts. Responsibility does not remove your humanity. Being capable does not mean being endlessly available. You may also carry anger toward those who failed to comfort you. You may remember people who offered advice when you needed presence, criticism when you needed gentleness, or silence when you needed reassurance. Let the anger reveal the unmet need beneath it. Perhaps you did not need them to fix the situation. You needed them to stay. Perhaps you did not need an explanation. You needed warmth. Perhaps you did not need to be reminded of your strength. You needed permission to stop using it for one moment. You may never receive that comfort from the people who should have provided it. But you can stop repeating their neglect inside yourself. You can become a safe presence for your own sorrow. When sadness arrives, do not immediately tell it to be practical. When tiredness appears, do not accuse it of weakness. When tears come, do not rush to hide them from yourself. Say, "You have carried enough for tonight." Say, "You are allowed to need care." Say, "Nothing has to be proven here." This is not empty self-praise. It is the beginning of an inner relationship built on loyalty rather than demand. The Stoics believed that your character remains within your care even when circumstances are harsh. Part of that character is how you treat the person living inside your own mind. Harshness is not always discipline. Sometimes discipline means refusing to continue a pattern that causes needless suffering. It means recognizing when the brave thing is not carrying more, but putting something down. It means asking for help before exhaustion turns into collapse. It means telling the truth when someone asks how you are. It means allowing another person to offer strength while yours is resting. As you lie here, you do not have to hold the whole world together. No one needs an answer from you in this moment. No crisis is improved by your clenched jaw. No one you love becomes safer because you refuse to rest. Let the strong face soften. Let the breath become uneven if it needs to. Let tears come without turning them into a sign that you are falling apart. Perhaps you are not falling apart. Perhaps the part of you that had to remain assembled for everyone else is finally being allowed to loosen. Tonight, give comfort to the person who kept going when no one came to carry them. Thank them for surviving. Thank them for protecting what mattered. Thank them for finding strength when strength was the only available choice. Then tell them something new. You do not have to do it alone anymore. Even if no one is beside you in this exact moment, you can begin seeking relationships where care moves in both directions. You can stop offering your deepest loyalty to people who only value what you do for them. You can create a life where asking for help is not treated as failure. And slowly, the grief of being strong when you needed comfort can begin to change. It can become tenderness toward the person you were. It can become wisdom about the kind of support you now accept. It can become a promise that your strength will no longer be used to silence your pain. You are still strong, but tonight, strength does not mean enduring more. It means allowing yourself to be human. It means letting the armor rest beside you. It means understanding that sometimes the most courageous words are not, "I can handle it." Sometimes they are, "Please stay. I need comfort too." And as you begin allowing yourself to receive the comfort you once had to live without, another tender loss may become visible. It is the quiet sorrow of realizing that some people who once felt essential to your survival no longer fit the person you are becoming. There was a time when you needed them. Perhaps they gave you company during a lonely season. Perhaps they protected you when you felt weak. Perhaps they understood a version of you that no one else seemed to see. They may have offered laughter when life felt heavy, guidance when you felt lost, or a sense of belonging when you did not know where else to go. At one point, their presence may have felt like safety. That is why outgrowing them can feel like betrayal. You may notice that conversations no longer nourish you. The same jokes feel empty. The same complaints circle without change. The habits that once connected you now leave you tired. You may still care about the person, yet something inside you becomes smaller whenever you return to the old relationship. This change can create guilt. You may tell yourself that good people do not leave those who helped them. You may believe that gratitude requires permanent closeness. You may fear becoming selfish, proud, or unkind simply because your needs have changed, so you continue showing up in the same way. You listen long after your energy is gone. You agree with things you no longer believe. You hide parts of your growth because the other person seems uncomfortable with them. You return to an older version of yourself so the relationship can remain familiar. The connection survives, but your honesty begins to disappear. Outgrowing someone does not always mean that they became bad. Sometimes two people simply move in different directions. One begins questioning old beliefs while the other holds them more tightly. One becomes interested in peace while the other remains attached to conflict. One learns to set boundaries while the other still expects unlimited access. No one needs to become a villain for a relationship to stop fitting. This is difficult because the mind often wants a clear reason before it permits distance. It wants betrayal, cruelty, or one dramatic event that makes leaving easy to explain. But many relationships do not end through a single wound. They fade through misalignment. You begin noticing that you cannot speak freely. You leave conversations feeling drained. You spend more time remembering who the person used to be than enjoying who they are now. You remain connected mainly through history, obligation, and fear of causing pain. History can explain why someone matters. It cannot always justify why they must remain close. The Stoics understood that everything in life changes form. Bodies age, roles shift, friendships move through seasons. The people who walk beside you during one chapter may not be able to follow you into the next. This does not erase their value. A bridge is still important, even when you have crossed it. The problem begins when you build your home on the bridge because you feel guilty for reaching the other side. You may need to grieve the purpose the relationship once served. Perhaps this person helped you survive a painful home, a difficult marriage, a financial struggle, or a period of deep loneliness. You may feel that leaving them now means denying what they did for you, but gratitude and continued access are not the same thing. You can appreciate what someone gave without offering them every future version of your life. You can remember their kindness without ignoring the harm that now exists. You can honor the past without forcing the relationship to remain unchanged. Sometimes the sorrow comes from knowing that the person still needs the version of you who depended on them. Your growth may disturb the balance of the relationship. When you become more confident, they may call you distant. When you stop asking for permission, they may say you have changed. When you no longer join every complaint, argument, or unhealthy habit, they may accuse you of thinking you are better than them. Perhaps they are not angry because you became worse. Perhaps they are frightened because the old way of relating to you is disappearing. Some people feel secure when they are needed. Your healing may remove the role that gave them importance. They may try to return you to the helpless, confused, or wounded person they knew how to support. You may be tempted to become smaller so they can feel comfortable again. But shrinking is not gratitude. Pretending to need what you have outgrown is not love. A healthy relationship must allow both people to change. It must make room for new boundaries, beliefs, priorities, and forms of closeness. If the relationship survives only when you remain wounded, it is not protecting your growth. It is depending on your pain. The Stoic practice asks you to act according to wisdom and character, not simply according to habit. Familiarity can make a relationship feel necessary long after it has stopped being healthy. You may continue answering every call because you always have. You may keep sharing private parts of your life because you once trusted the person deeply. You may attend every gathering because absence would create questions. Yet the fact that something has always been done does not mean it must always continue. Your life is not required to remain loyal to an old pattern simply because the pattern has a long history. Still, distance can bring real grief. You may miss the person even while knowing that closeness is no longer good for you. You may remember nights when they understood you, trips you shared, private jokes, and difficult moments you survived together. The heart may ask, how can someone who once felt like home now feel so far away? Because you changed. Because they changed. Because the relationship changed. Change does not always mean that someone failed. Sometimes it means the season completed itself. This truth can be painful because many people are taught that lasting forever is the proof that a relationship was real. But duration is not the only measure of meaning. Some people remain for decades and never truly know one another. Others stay for a short season and change the direction of a life. A relationship can end and still have mattered. You do not need to call it a mistake simply because it could not continue. You may also be grieving the future you once pictured with this person. Perhaps you believed you would grow old together as friends. Perhaps you expected family closeness that never developed. Perhaps you imagined years of shared holidays, conversations, or mutual support. When the relationship changes, you lose more than the present connection. You lose the future version of it. This loss deserves acknowledgement. You are not only missing who they were, you are mourning who you hoped both of you would become together. Let yourself feel that without using it as a reason to remain trapped. Hope can reveal what you valued, but it cannot force another person to grow beside you. Sometimes outgrowing someone does not require completely removing them from your life. The relationship may need a different distance. A person who once knew everything may now know only what you choose to share. Someone you once spoke with every day may become someone you contact occasionally. A close friendship may become a respectful memory. A family relationship may continue with firmer limits and fewer emotional expectations. Distance is not always punishment. Sometimes it is the shape peace must take. The wise question is not always, should this person stay or go? It may be, what level of closeness allows me to remain honest and well? You do not need to make every decision dramatically. You can observe how the relationship affects you. Notice what happens inside your body before, during, and after contact. Do you feel free to speak? Do you feel respected when you disagree? Can you share good news without it being reduced, mocked, or turned into competition? Can you say no without facing punishment? Can the relationship survive your growth? Your body may recognize the truth before your mind is willing to admit it. You may feel tension when their name appears on your phone. You may prepare yourself before meeting them. You may rehearse safe topics and hide important parts of your life. This does not always mean the person is dangerous, but it may mean that the relationship is no longer a place where you can fully rest. The Stoics valued friendship, but they also valued character. A connection that repeatedly pulls you away from honesty, dignity, and peace deserves careful examination. You are shaped by what you repeatedly allow near you. If every conversation is built around bitterness, bitterness may become easier to carry. If every gathering requires gossip, cruelty, or self-betrayal, your participation has a cost. If someone constantly invites you back into habits you are trying to leave, love alone may not be enough to keep them close. You can care about someone and still recognize that their influence is no longer good for you. This does not require hatred. Hatred is another form of attachment. You do not need to make them wrong in every way, so you can choose a different path. You can leave without rewriting the entire history as pain. You can keep the good memories while refusing to repeat the harmful pattern. There may be moments when you want to explain your growth so perfectly that the other person cannot feel hurt. You may search for words that make distance painless. Those words may not exist. Even a gentle boundary can disappoint someone. Even an honest change can be misunderstood. Your responsibility is to speak with respect, not to control every reaction. The Stoic distinction matters here. Your intentions, words, and conduct belong to you. Their interpretation does not. You can avoid unnecessary cruelty. You can express gratitude. You can acknowledge the history you shared. But you cannot guarantee that they will understand why you need a different relationship now. They may tell others a version of the story that makes you look ungrateful. They may focus on everything they once did for you while ignoring what the relationship has become. Let them have their opinion. You do not have to return to an unhealthy closeness simply to correct every misunderstanding. There is also a deeper fear beneath some relationships. The fear that without these people, you will have no one. You may remain connected because the known loneliness feels safer than the unknown future. The relationship may not feel good, but at least it is familiar. This is where courage becomes quiet. Courage may be spending an evening alone instead of returning to a place where you cannot be yourself. It may be allowing space to exist before new connections arrive. It may be trusting that loneliness is not always proof that you made the wrong decision. An empty space can feel painful. It can also be where a different life begins. New relationships need room. So does a deeper relationship with yourself. If every part of your life is filled by people connected to an older identity, there may be no space for those who can meet the person you are becoming. Tonight, let yourself mourn without rushing to replace anyone. You do not need to find new friends immediately. You do not need to prove that leaving was correct. You can simply acknowledge that someone once mattered deeply and that the relationship now asks you to become someone you no longer wish to be. Say silently, "Thank you for the part of the road we shared." Say, "I will not deny what you gave me." Then say, "I cannot remain who I was simply to keep us the same." Let both gratitude and sadness exist. You are not rejecting every memory. You are releasing an old agreement. The agreement that closeness must continue even when truth cannot. The agreement that loyalty requires self-abandonment. The agreement that because you once needed someone, you must always belong to them in the same way. You may always feel tenderness when you think of who they were to you. That tenderness does not require return. Some people can be loved best from a distance. Some can be remembered without being invited back into every room of your life. The sorrow may remain for a while. You may reach for the phone out of habit. You may hear something funny and remember how quickly you once would have told them. You may miss the ease of being known by someone who shared so much history. Let the missing be honest. Missing someone does not always mean you should reopen the relationship. It may simply mean that love and change are capable of existing together. As the night grows quieter, release the belief that every meaningful bond must remain unchanged to prove its worth. Some people helped you survive. Some taught you what closeness felt like. Some showed you what you would later need to outgrow. Their part in your life was real. Your growth is real too. You are allowed to honor the person they were without returning to the person you had to be beside them. You are allowed to walk forward without calling the past worthless. And perhaps the deepest way to thank those who once helped you survive is not to remain dependent forever, but to use the strength you found beside them to continue becoming someone who can now stand, choose, and live more freely. And as you learn to honor the people you have outgrown without abandoning the person you are becoming, another part of healing begins. The mind may understand that a painful chapter is over, but the body may still react as though it is standing inside the same moment. A door closes suddenly. A voice becomes sharp. A message goes unanswered. A certain date approaches. Before you have time to think, your breathing changes. Your chest tightens. Your stomach turns. Your muscles prepare for something that is not actually happening now. The body has remembered before the mind has understood. This can feel confusing. You may tell yourself that you are safe. You may know that the person is gone, the relationship has ended, or the crisis happened years ago. Yet your body continues responding with fear, tension, or sudden heaviness. This does not mean you are choosing the past. It means the nervous system learned the painful moment through sensation. It learned the sound of the room, the expression on someone's face, the silence before bad news, the feeling of having no control. These details became connected to danger. Later, anything that resembles them may awaken the old response. A raised voice today may remind the body of anger from long ago. Someone becoming distant may awaken the fear of being abandoned. A quiet house may return you to the evening when everything changed. The present moment may be different, but the body notices similarity before it notices safety. This is why logic alone does not always calm fear. You can explain that there is nothing to worry about. You can list every reason the situation is different, but the nervous system is not asking for a better argument. It is asking for a new experience. It needs to feel again and again that the painful moment has passed. The Stoic practice begins with seeing what is happening without shame. You do not accuse yourself of being dramatic. You do not demand that the reaction disappear immediately. You notice the body's alarm and ask one simple question. What is happening right now? not what happened years ago, not what might happen tomorrow. What is happening in this room, in this breath, in this exact moment? Perhaps you are lying safely in bed. Perhaps the door is locked. Perhaps the person who hurt you is no longer near you. Perhaps the conversation has ended. Perhaps there is no decision that must be made tonight. These facts may seem ordinary, but they help bring the body back into the present. The nervous system often responds to time as though everything is happening together. A memory can make the past feel immediate. A fear can make the future feel certain. Your task is to gently separate these moments. That was then. This is now. The feeling is old. The room is different. These words are not meant to erase the pain. They remind the body that memory is not the same as current danger. You may notice that part of you resists this reassurance. It may say, "But something painful could happen again." That is true. Life cannot offer complete protection from loss, rejection, or change. Stoic peace is not built on the promise that nothing difficult will ever return. It is built on the understanding that you do not have to suffer tomorrow's pain today. If difficulty comes, you will meet it in its own hour. You do not need to keep the body inside an emergency in order to remain prepared. Constant tension does not create control. It creates exhaustion. The nervous system may believe that relaxing will make you vulnerable. Perhaps the worst moments in your life arrived when you were not expecting them. The body may have concluded that peace is dangerous because peace lowers the guard. So when calm begins, uneasiness follows. You may search for a problem. You may check on people repeatedly. You may replay conversations to find hidden danger. You may feel restless during quiet moments because stillness seems too similar to the silence before bad news. Do not judge this pattern. It was created by a system trying to protect you. But protection must be updated when circumstances change. You can begin by noticing the difference between a signal and a fact. A racing heart is a signal that the body feels threatened. It is not always proof that a threat is present. A fearful thought is a signal that the mind remembers pain. It is not always a prediction of what will happen next. The Stoics taught that an impression may enter the mind before you choose what to believe about it. The first reaction is not always within your control. What you do with that reaction still matters. You may feel fear. You do not have to build a story around it. You may feel tension. You do not have to search the future for a disaster that explains it. You can simply say, "My body is remembering." This creates distance without rejection. The body is not the enemy. The memory is not attacking you. A protective response has been activated, and you can meet it with steadiness. Begin with what the senses can confirm. Feel the weight of the bed beneath you. Notice the temperature of the room. Listen for the quietest sound you can hear. Become aware of the fabric touching your skin. Let your eyes rest behind closed lids. These small details tell the nervous system where you are. They return you from the remembered place to the present one. Do not force the breath to become deep. A body that feels threatened may experience forced breathing as another demand. Let the exhale become slightly longer if that feels comfortable. Allow the inhale to arrive naturally. The message is not, "Calm down immediately." The message is, "You have time." There is no need to rush. No one is asking you to perform healing. You are teaching safety through patience. The nervous system learns through repetition. One peaceful evening may help, but old alarms often require many calm experiences before they begin to change. This is why healing can feel slow. You may understand the truth long before the body trusts it. Do not mistake slowness for failure. Every time you notice the reaction without becoming controlled by it, something new is being learned. Every time a memory rises and you remain in the present, the body receives new evidence. Every time you set a boundary instead of enduring another harmful situation, you prove that you can protect yourself now. Every time you leave a conversation that becomes cruel, ask for support, or choose rest before collapse, the nervous system sees that you are no longer powerless. Safety is not only something you feel, it is something you create through action. You cannot teach the body that danger has passed while repeatedly placing yourself in the same kind of danger. If certain people continue shouting, manipulating, threatening, or ignoring your limits, your nervous system may be responding accurately. Calm does not require you to tolerate what should be changed. Stoicism is not passive suffering. It asks you to accept what is outside your control while acting wisely where choice remains. You may not control another person's behavior. You can control whether you stay in every argument. You may not control how someone judges your boundary. You can still keep the boundary. You may not control the past. You can build a present that no longer repeats it. Each wise action tells the body, "I will not abandon you now." This may be especially important if the original pain happened when you were young. A child may have had no power to leave, speak, or seek help. The nervous system learned helplessness because helplessness was real at the time, but you are not standing there now. You may have choices that did not exist then. You can walk away. You can ask for support. You can protect your time. You can refuse access. You can speak clearly. The body may still feel like the younger person who had no control. Remind it gently that the adult you are now has arrived. You do not need to become angry with the frightened part. It has been waiting for someone capable to take responsibility for safety. Let that someone be you. Say silently, "I am here. I see what is happening. I will not force you to stay where you are harmed. I will not ignore the warning, but I will check whether the danger is real." These words create an inner relationship based on trust. Sometimes the body also holds pain because the event never received a clear ending. The crisis stopped, but no one acknowledged that it was over. Life simply moved forward. You may have returned to work, school, parenting, or daily responsibilities without a moment to breathe. The nervous system did not receive a final message. Tonight, you can begin offering one. The call has ended. The door has closed. The decision has been made. The loss has already happened. I do not have to prepare for that exact moment again. This does not mean the consequences disappeared. You may still be living with changes created by the loss. But there is a difference between living with a consequence and reliving the event that caused it. The consequence belongs to the present. The shock belongs to the past. Teaching this difference can allow grief to become less urgent. It may remain sad, but it no longer has to feel like an emergency. You may still experience sudden reactions. A scent may awaken a memory. A place may bring back a difficult day. A person may use a phrase that once carried pain. When this happens, do not say, "I thought I was over this." Healing is not proven by never reacting. It is shown in how you return. Perhaps the body once needed hours or days to settle. Now it may take less time. Perhaps you once believed every fear. Now you can notice it and wait. Perhaps you once felt completely pulled into the past. Now one part of you can remain aware of the room around you. These are meaningful changes. They show that the painful moment is becoming a memory instead of a place you continue living. Tonight, give the nervous system no difficult task. Do not ask it to forget. Do not ask it to trust the entire future. Ask it only to recognize this moment. This bed is beneath you. This breath is moving. This night is here. The past is not entering the room. The body may soften only slightly. That is enough. One muscle releases. One thought passes without being followed. One breath leaves without being held. Safety often returns through small experiences that do not look dramatic from the outside. But inside, a deep change is beginning. The guard notices that nothing happened when it rested. The heart notices that a memory can arrive and leave. The body notices that you listened without panicking. And slowly, it learns that it no longer needs to keep the painful moment alive in order to protect you from it. What happened was real. What you felt was real. What it changed was real. But it is not happening now. Tonight, let that truth move beneath the words and into the body. The moment passed. You survived it. You are here. And for this breath, you are safe enough to rest. And as the nervous system begins to understand that the painful moment has passed, another grief may rise from much earlier in your life. It is the grief of realizing that when you were small, frightened, and still learning what the world meant, someone should have protected you, and they did not. A child is not supposed to understand every danger. A child is not supposed to manage the emotions of adults. A child is not supposed to become quiet, careful, or useful in order to remain safe. Yet many people learned these things before they learned how to trust. Perhaps no one came when you cried. Perhaps the adults around you were physically present, but emotionally absent. They provided food, clothing, or a place to sleep. Yet they did not notice what was happening inside you. You may have been told to stop being dramatic, stop asking questions, or stop making trouble when what you truly needed was reassurance. Maybe there was anger in the home that could appear without warning. You learned to read footsteps, facial expressions, and changes in someone's voice. You noticed which version of an adult had entered the room before deciding whether it was safe to speak. Other children were learning how to play. You were learning how to predict danger. This kind of childhood can make a person look mature long before they are ready. Adults may praise the child for being independent, sensible, or unusually responsible. They may not realize that the child became independent because depending on anyone felt uncertain. You may have prepared your own meals, solved your own problems, or comforted yourself after painful experiences. You may have protected younger siblings while needing protection yourself. You may have learned not to ask for much because asking often led to disappointment. People may have called you strong, but strength was not what you needed most. You needed safety. You needed an adult who noticed when your behavior changed. Someone who asked what happened and stayed long enough to hear the answer. Someone who believed you without making you prove your pain. Someone who stood between you and what was frightening. The absence of that protection creates a grief that can remain hidden for years. You may not recognize it until you see another child receiving what you lacked. A parent speaks gently to them after a mistake. An adult steps in when someone is cruel. A frightened child is held instead of punished. Something inside you may ache. You may feel sadness, anger, jealousy, or even confusion. You might wonder why such ordinary care affects you so deeply. It affects you because part of you is witnessing what should have happened. This grief is not childish. It is not self-pity. It is the honest recognition that a need was real and was not met. The Stoics believed in facing reality without decoration. They did not ask people to call injustice acceptable simply because it happened long ago. What occurred in childhood may be outside your present control, but seeing it clearly still matters. You cannot heal what you continue to excuse. Perhaps you have spent years defending the adults who failed you. You tell yourself they had difficult lives. They were young. They were stressed. They did not know better. They experienced pain in their own childhoods. These things may be true. Understanding their history can explain their limitations. It does not remove the effect those limitations had on you. You can hold compassion for what shaped them while still grieving what they failed to give. Their suffering and your suffering do not compete. One does not cancel the other. A parent may have loved you and still failed to protect you. A family may have provided some good memories and still left deep wounds. A person may have done their best, and their best may still have been harmful. The heart can hold these truths without forcing them into a simple story. You may also have learned to blame yourself. Children often assume that adults know what they are doing. When protection is absent, the child may conclude that they were not worth protecting. Perhaps you believed you were too difficult, too sensitive, or somehow responsible for the way you were treated. You may have tried to become better so the adults would become kinder. You became quiet. You achieved more. You avoided mistakes. You made yourself useful. But protection should never have depended on perfection. A child does not have to earn the right to feel safe. You were not responsible for creating maturity in the adults around you. You were not responsible for controlling their anger, healing their wounds, or making the home peaceful. Those duties belong to people with more power, knowledge, and responsibility than you had. You may understand this logically now, yet the old belief can still influence your life. It may appear when you feel responsible for everyone's emotions. When someone becomes upset, the younger part of you may immediately search for what you did wrong. You may apologize before understanding the situation. You may try to calm the person because anger still feels like a threat. You may also struggle to trust protection when it is offered. If no one defended you before, depending on another person can feel dangerous. You may expect them to disappear, change their mind, or use your vulnerability against you. So you protect yourself by needing very little. You keep problems private. You remain alert, even around kind people. You tell yourself that self-reliance is freedom, while part of it may still be fear. There is value in being capable, but there is a difference between choosing independence and believing that no one will ever care for you safely. The Stoic path does not ask you to surrender your judgment and trust everyone. It asks you to see people according to their character rather than according to old fear. Some people are unsafe, others are steady. Wisdom is learning the difference. You can notice who respects your boundaries, who listens without dismissing you, who remains kind when you disagree, who does not demand that you become smaller to preserve the relationship. Trust does not need to be given all at once. It can grow through evidence. A promise is made and kept. A private truth is shared and protected. A boundary is expressed and respected. Each safe experience teaches the younger part of you that the world contains more than the home in which you first learned fear. But before new safety can fully enter, grief may need room. You may need to mourn the childhood you deserved, the peaceful mornings, the dependable comfort, the freedom to make mistakes, the feeling of knowing that an adult would handle what was too large for you. You cannot return and create those exact years. This is one of the hardest truths to accept. Childhood is not a room you can re-enter and arrange differently, but you can stop pretending that nothing was lost. You can say, "I needed protection." You can say, "It should have been given." You can say, "Its absence affected me." These statements are not attacks on your family. They are acknowledgments of your experience. The truth does not become cruel simply because someone dislikes hearing it. There may also be anger toward the adults who saw enough to suspect something was wrong but remained silent. A relative, teacher, neighbor, or family friend may have noticed your fear. Perhaps they chose not to become involved. They may have believed that family matters should remain private. Their silence may still hurt. You may wonder why no one asked the right question, why no one stayed, why no one stood beside you. Do not turn these questions into another search that keeps you trapped. Some answers may never come. Adults often avoid difficult truths because acting would require courage, conflict, or responsibility. Their failure to act reflected their limitations. It did not reflect your worth. The child you were deserved to be noticed, even if no one was brave enough to notice. Tonight, let yourself become the witness that child never had. You do not need to return to every memory. You do not need to force forgotten details into the light. Simply recognize the younger part of you that learned to stay alert, become agreeable, or disappear. Speak to that part gently. You did not cause what happened. You were not difficult to love. You should not have handled that alone. I believe you. These words may awaken sadness. Let the sadness move at its own pace. You are not opening the past so it can swallow you. You are offering the truth that was missing when the pain occurred. You may also feel protective anger. Let it become a source of present wisdom rather than a weapon turned against yourself. Use it to protect your boundaries now. Use it to leave situations where cruelty is treated as normal. Use it to believe children when they say something feels wrong. Use it to create the safety you once needed wherever your influence reaches. This is one way grief can become purpose without being glorified. You do not have to thank the pain for making you compassionate. You could have learned compassion through love. But since the pain occurred, you can decide that its pattern will not continue through you. You can become the adult who notices, the adult who listens, the adult who does not mock fear, the adult who understands that safety is not only the absence of physical harm, it is also the presence of patience, consistency, respect, and care. And you can offer those things to yourself. When you make a mistake, do not speak with the same cruelty you once heard. When you feel afraid, do not shame yourself for the reaction. When you need rest, do not treat your need as an inconvenience. Each gentle response becomes a form of protection, arriving late but not arriving too late. You cannot stand beside the child you were in the original moment, but you can stand beside the part of that child that still lives within your reactions, fears, and needs. You can say, I will not abandon you to keep someone else comfortable. You can say, I will listen when something feels wrong. You can say, you no longer have to earn safety by becoming invisible. The nervous system may not believe these promises immediately. It has heard words before. It will watch your actions. It will notice when you keep a boundary. It will notice when you leave a harmful room. It will notice when you ask for help. It will notice when you rest, instead of forcing yourself through exhaustion. Over time, these choices become evidence that protection exists now. As the night deepens, let your younger self stop watching the door. They do not have to listen for footsteps. They do not have to prepare an explanation. They do not have to become perfect before morning. The danger they once faced belongs to another time. The adults who failed them no longer hold complete authority over their inner world. You are here now, older, wiser, able to choose what enters your life and what must remain outside it. Mourn the protection that should have arrived sooner. Let the loss be named without minimizing it. Then offer yourself the steady care that was missing. You cannot change who failed to stand beside you then. But tonight, you can make one quiet promise to the child who waited. You will never have to face your pain without me again. And as you begin offering protection to the younger part of you that once faced pain alone, another form of freedom becomes possible. You can remember what happened without forcing your body to return to the moment. You can carry the truth of the past without continuing to live inside it. Remembering and reliving may appear similar, but they are not the same. Remembering says, this happened to me. Reliving says, this is happening to me again. A memory allows you to look backward from the safety of the present. Reliving pulls the past over the present until the difference between then and now becomes difficult to feel. The room around you may be peaceful, but your body responds as though the old danger has returned. A certain voice, smell, song, place, or expression can open a door before you realize what is happening. Your heart begins beating faster. Your muscles tighten. The words from the past become loud again. You may feel small, trapped, rejected, or powerless in the same way you once did. The event is not repeating outside you. Yet inside, the old moment may feel completely alive. This does not mean you are weak or choosing to remain wounded. Painful experiences can leave strong connections between memory and physical response. The mind may understand that years have passed, while the body reacts before reason has time to speak. This is why telling yourself to just forget it rarely works. Forgetting is not always possible, and it is not always wise. Memory can protect you by teaching you what to notice, what to avoid, and which boundaries matter. It can deepen your understanding of yourself. It can remind you of what you survived and what you will no longer accept. The problem is not that the memory exists. The problem begins when every memory becomes a doorway back into helplessness. The Stoics valued honest reflection, but they did not believe a person should surrender the present to events that could no longer be changed. They understood that the past can be examined for wisdom without being treated as a place of residence. A wise memory asks, "What can this teach me?" A painful loop asks, "How can I make it happen differently?" The first question faces forward. The second keeps searching for a past that does not exist. You may replay an event because the ending felt wrong. Perhaps you were unable to speak. Perhaps you froze when you wanted to defend yourself. Perhaps you trusted someone you now believe you should have questioned. The mind returns because it wants another chance. It creates a new version of the scene. This time you recognize the warning. This time you say the perfect words. This time you leave sooner. This time someone finally protects you. For a moment, the new version may offer relief, but the actual event remains unchanged. The mind returns again, searching for a correction that memory cannot provide. This is how remembering becomes reliving. The memory stops being information and becomes unfinished work. But the past is no longer asking you to repair it. It cannot be repaired in the place where it happened. What can be repaired must be repaired here, through the choices you make now. You may not have spoken then. You can speak more clearly today. You may not have recognized manipulation then. You can trust the understanding you have developed. You may not have been able to leave then. You can refuse to remain in similar situations now. You may not have received protection. You can create boundaries that protect your present life. This is how you complete what memory keeps trying to complete. Not by rewriting the old moment, but by refusing to repeat its lesson. The Stoic difference begins with your position. When you remember, place yourself in the present as the observer of the memory. Do not stand inside the old scene as though you are still the person with no choices. Notice where you are now. Feel the bed beneath you. Listen to the sounds around you. Recognize the age you are today. Remember the knowledge you possess now. The person in the memory may have felt powerless. The person remembering has survived, learned, and changed. Say silently, "I am looking at something that happened. I am not inside it now." This simple sentence creates a line between memory and reality. At first, that line may feel thin. The emotion may still be strong. Your body may continue reacting. Do not demand immediate calm. The goal is not to make the memory empty. The goal is to remain aware of the present while the memory moves through you. You can feel sadness and still know where you are. You can feel anger and still choose what you do next. You can remember fear without searching the room for the person who caused it. This is a powerful form of Stoic attention. You are neither denying the impression nor giving it complete control. You are witnessing it, examining it, and choosing whether its message belongs to the present. Some memories carry useful warnings. Others carry old fear into situations that are no longer the same. Someone may disagree with you, and the body remembers being punished for speaking. The disagreement is present. The punishment is not. A loved one may need time alone, and the body remembers abandonment. The distance is present. The abandonment has not been proven. You may make a mistake, and the body remembers humiliation. The mistake is real. The old voice declaring you worthless is not the truth of this moment. Learning to separate these things protects you from reacting to today through the pain of yesterday. When the past is relived, present people can become characters in an older story. You may expect a caring partner to behave like the person who betrayed you. You may interpret a friend's silence through the memory of someone who disappeared. You may defend yourself before anyone has attacked because your body recognizes a familiar possibility. This can create the very distance you fear. The Stoic practice is to judge what is present according to present evidence. Ask, what has actually happened? Not, what does this remind me of? The reminder matters, but it is not the whole truth. Perhaps the current person has behaved with patience and honesty. Perhaps the delayed message has an ordinary explanation. Perhaps the mistake can be corrected without shame. Give the present a chance to reveal its own character. The past should inform your judgment. It should not replace it. This does not mean ignoring clear warning signs in the name of healing. Wisdom is not blind trust. If someone repeatedly acts in ways that resemble an old harmful pattern, take the evidence seriously. But respond to what they are doing now, not only to what another person did before. This keeps your boundaries clear rather than fearful. A clear boundary says, this behavior is not acceptable. A fearful reaction may say, every person will eventually hurt me. One protects your dignity. The other closes your life around the wound. You may also relive pain through the way you speak to yourself. The original person may be gone, yet their words continue through your inner voice. You make a small mistake and hear the same criticism. You try something new and feel the old ridicule. You express a need and immediately call yourself difficult. The past no longer needs the original person to repeat itself. It has learned to use your voice. Notice when this happens. Ask, whose judgment am I repeating? You may discover that the thought does not belong to your present values. It was planted during a time when you depended on someone else's opinion to understand yourself. You can remember what they said without continuing to say it for them. Replace the old sentence with something truthful. I made a mistake, but I am not a mistake. My need may disappoint someone, but it remains valid. I am learning something I was once discouraged from trying. This is not pretending that you are perfect. It is refusing to turn correction into cruelty. Stoicism calls for self-examination, but self-examination should produce wisdom. If every reflection ends in shame, you are not studying the past. You are allowing it to punish you again. Remembering should make your choices clearer. Reliving makes your identity smaller. Remembering allows you to say, I went through something painful. Reliving tells you, I am forever the person that pain created. You are more than the worst thing that happened to you. The event influenced you, but it did not receive ownership of everything you would become. There are qualities in you that existed before it, and qualities that developed beyond it. There is kindness that pain did not destroy. There is curiosity the wound did not create. There is wisdom that belongs to your choices, not only to your suffering. Do not give the painful moment credit for your entire identity. You were not born inside that event. Your life did not end there. Tonight, if a difficult memory appears, do not push it away. Pushing can make it return with more force. Instead, let it approach as something you already know. Say, "You are a memory." Say, "You carry pain, but you do not carry new danger." Say, "I will listen for the lesson, then return to this room." Perhaps the lesson is that you need a boundary. Perhaps it is that you have been blaming yourself unfairly. Perhaps it is that something was taken from you and deserves to be mourned. Receive the lesson without repeating the punishment. Then allow the image to move farther away. You do not have to erase it. Let it become what it truly is, a piece of the past viewed from the present. The memory may return another night. That does not mean the practice failed. Some moments must be met many times before the body stops treating them as unfinished danger. Each return can be different. At first, the memory may pull you completely inside it. Later, you may notice it happening. Still later, you may remain aware that you are safe while the emotion passes. This is progress. Healing is not always the disappearance of memory. Sometimes it is the growth of a present, strong enough to hold the memory without being swallowed by it. Your life becomes larger than the painful scene. New experiences gather around it. New relationships offer different evidence. New decisions show that the old pattern is no longer in control. The memory remains one page, but it is no longer the entire book. As the night continues, let the past rest in its proper time. It does not need to be denied. It does not need to be repaired again. It does not need to follow you into every conversation, relationship, and quiet moment. You can honor what you survived without returning there. You can remember the person you were without becoming them again. You can carry the lesson without carrying the emergency. The pain belongs to your history. The breath moving through you belongs to now. And each time you recognize the difference, you reclaim another part of the life that the past once tried to keep. And as you learn to remember pain without returning to the moment that caused it, another hidden attachment may come into view. Part of you may be afraid that if the suffering becomes lighter, the person, dream, or life you lost will somehow become less important. This fear is rarely spoken aloud. It appears when laughter returns and guilt quickly follows. It appears when you enjoy a peaceful day and suddenly wonder whether you are forgetting. It appears when a memory no longer hurts as sharply as it once did, and instead of feeling relieved, you become uneasy. The pain has been beside you for so long that releasing it can feel like releasing the one you loved. You may have begun to treat suffering as proof that the relationship was real, proof that the loss changed you, proof that you still remember, proof that your love did not end when their life, presence, or place beside you ended. The mind may quietly say, "If I stop hurting, perhaps it means I no longer care." But pain and love are not the same thing. Pain may have arrived because you loved. Yet pain is not the only form that love can take after loss. Love can remain as gratitude, tenderness, memory, wisdom, and the way you choose to live. It does not need to remain a wound in order to remain true. Still, the heart may resist this. During the first days of grief, suffering can feel like the final connection. Everything else has been taken away. The voice is gone. The daily routines have ended. The messages have stopped. The future you expected has disappeared. But the pain remains. Because it remains, you may hold it close. It becomes something that still belongs to the relationship. Letting it soften can feel like allowing another part of the person to disappear. This is how loyalty to suffering begins. You may return to painful memories on purpose. You may focus on the final day instead of the full life. You may avoid places, people, or experiences that could bring joy because joy seems disrespectful. You may refuse new love, new plans, or new peace because part of you believes moving forward would leave the lost person behind. No one may have asked this sacrifice from you, yet you continue offering it. Perhaps grief became the way you kept your promise not to forget. The Stoics would ask you to examine whether this promise honors what was lost or simply extends the destruction caused by the loss. If someone you loved could speak to you now, would they ask you to remain emotionally frozen as evidence of your devotion? Would they want every joyful moment to be followed by guilt? Would they want the worst day of their story to become the center of yours? Love does not require your life to become smaller. A meaningful relationship should not need your permanent suffering as a monument. This does not mean grief should be rushed. You do not have to become cheerful before you are ready. You do not have to remove reminders, stop crying, or speak about the loss without emotion. Grief has no schedule that must satisfy other people. But there is a difference between allowing pain to move naturally and holding pain in place because you believe it carries a moral duty. One is grief. The other is loyalty to grief. Loyalty can make healing feel like betrayal. You may judge yourself for having a good day. You may catch yourself smiling and immediately remember that someone is gone. The joy closes as quickly as it opened. It is as though your mind keeps a guard beside every peaceful moment, asking, "How can you enjoy this after what happened?" The answer is simple, though it may take time to accept. You can enjoy this because you are still alive. Your continued life does not insult the life that ended. Your peace does not erase the pain you experienced. Your laughter does not cancel your tears. The heart is large enough to contain remembrance and joy at the same time. The Stoics understood that death, separation, and change belong to nature. They did not say these things should feel easy. They taught that when life takes what we cannot keep, we must not surrender everything that remains. The loss already took someone, something, or some future from you. It does not need every morning that follows. It does not need every relationship still available. It does not need the part of you that can laugh, create, love, or hope again. You may feel that suffering keeps the lost person close, but suffering often keeps you close only to the moment of separation. It reduces an entire relationship to its most painful ending. The person was more than the day they left. The relationship was more than the silence that followed. There were ordinary conversations, shared meals, private jokes, difficult lessons, small kindnesses, and moments that did not know they would later become precious. Why should the final wound receive more attention than all the life that came before it? You can choose to remember differently. Instead of returning only to the hospital room, remember the sound of their laughter. Instead of focusing only on the final argument, remember the days when understanding existed. Instead of holding only the regret, remember what you gave with the knowledge you had. The painful ending is part of the truth. It is not the whole truth. Loyalty to suffering may also form after the loss of a dream rather than a person. Perhaps you wanted a marriage, a family, a career, a home, or a future that never arrived. You may continue carrying disappointment because releasing it feels like admitting the dream never mattered. But acceptance does not make the dream foolish. You wanted something because it represented love, security, purpose, or belonging. Those needs were real. The future you pictured held meaning. You can honor that meaning without spending the rest of your life facing a closed door. The dream mattered. It also ended. Both truths can exist. You do not prove that a future was valuable by refusing every other future that becomes possible. Sometimes loyalty to suffering comes from guilt. You may believe you survived when someone else did not. You may have escaped a difficult situation while another person remained. You may now have peace that someone you loved never experienced. This can create the feeling that enjoying your life is unfair. You may limit your happiness as though your suffering could somehow balance the world, but your pain does not return anything to the person who lost more. Your refusal to live does not correct the injustice. It creates another life shaped by the same loss. You can remember those who did not receive the future you received. You can carry their influence into your choices. You can act with greater kindness, courage, and appreciation because you understand how fragile time can be. But you do not need to punish yourself for surviving. Survival is not a crime. Peace is not theft. You did not take your life from the person who lost theirs. The Stoic path asks you to use what remains well. That may be a greater tribute than sorrow without end. Use the day they did not receive to practice the goodness they taught you. Use your voice to say what they were unable to say. Use your presence to offer comfort where they once offered comfort to you. Let remembrance become action rather than punishment. This allows love to move. When love has nowhere to go after loss, it may turn inward and become pain. The care you once offered the person still exists, but the familiar place for that care is gone. You may feel it building inside you with no destination. Give it a new direction. You can write down the lessons the person left with you. You can continue a small tradition that carries warmth rather than obligation. You can help someone in a way that reflects their kindness. You can become more present with those who are still here. The love does not need to disappear. It needs a form that allows you to keep living. There may be people around you who also expect you to remain in grief. They may judge how quickly you return to ordinary life. They may question how you can travel, laugh, form a new relationship, or make plans after a loss. Their expectations may become another burden, but no one else can accurately measure what you carry in private. A smile does not reveal the absence of grief. A new chapter does not prove that the old chapter was meaningless. You do not owe permanent sadness to people who use your suffering as evidence that you cared. Your grief belongs to you. So does your healing. The Stoic distinction between what is yours and what belongs to others matters here. Other people may hold opinions about how you should mourn. You can listen when their concern is loving, but you do not have to surrender your life to their judgment. Your task is not to look broken enough. Your task is to live with honesty and character. Ask yourself whether the pain is still moving or whether you have made a home inside it. Ask whether you are allowing grief to change or protecting it from change. Ask what you believe would happen if tomorrow felt lighter. Would you fear forgetting? Would you fear judgment? Would you fear losing your identity? Grief can become an identity when it has shaped your days for a long time. People may know you through what happened. Your routines, conversations, and relationships may have formed around the loss. Without the suffering, you may wonder who you are. This uncertainty is natural. You do not need to replace the identity immediately. Let yourself become unknown for a while. You are not only the person who lost. You are also the person who remembers, learns, chooses, and continues. The loss is part of you. It is not the full name of your life. Tonight, consider the possibility that the person, relationship, or dream you lost does not need your pain in order to remain meaningful. The meaning is already there. It exists in the way the experience shaped your understanding. It exists in the memories that remain. It exists in the values you now protect and the love you still carry. Suffering does not make these things more real. It only makes them harder to hold. You You may be ready to loosen your loyalty, but not release it completely. Begin gently. Allow one peaceful breath without guilt. Allow one warm memory that does not end at the moment of loss. Allow one thought about the future without immediately comparing it to what should have been. These small permissions matter. They tell the heart that healing is not abandonment. You can say silently, "I do not need to hurt this deeply forever to prove that you mattered. I can carry the love without carrying the wound in the same way. I can live, and I can remember." Notice what rises when you say this. There may be resistance, there may be tears, there may be fear that the connection will fade if the pain fades. Remind yourself that memory and pain do not always weaken together. Sometimes, as pain becomes quieter, memory becomes clearer. You begin remembering the whole person rather than only their absence. You remember ordinary details that grief once covered. You feel gratitude without being immediately pulled into despair. The bond changes form. It does not become nothing. This is what release can mean, not forgetting, not replacing, not denying, simply allowing love to become something your body can carry without breaking under its weight. You can place the suffering down and still keep what was sacred. You can walk toward joy without walking away from the past. You can let tomorrow hold new meaning without asking yesterday for permission. As the night deepens, let your grief know that it has already proved enough. It has shown that something mattered. It has shown that your heart was changed. It has shown that love reached deeply into your life. No further evidence is required. The loss was real. The love was real. And now, your continued life can be real too. You do not honor what is gone by disappearing beside it. You honor it by carrying forward what was good, releasing what has become needless suffering, and allowing the life still breathing within you to open again. And as you begin releasing the belief that suffering is the only proof that something mattered, another grief may rise from the life that existed only in your hopes. It is the sorrow of looking toward a future you once trusted, and realizing that you will never arrive there in the way you expected. Some losses happen before they become visible. Nothing has been removed from your hands because the thing you lost had not yet arrived. There may be no photograph, no final conversation, and no clear date when the future ended. There is only the slow realization that the life you planned is no longer waiting for you. Perhaps you expected to grow old beside someone who left. Perhaps you believed your family would remain close. Perhaps you thought your health, work, marriage, home, or finances would become more secure with time. Perhaps you spent years preparing for a season of peace, only to discover that life had chosen another direction. This kind of grief can be difficult to explain because other people may not see what has been lost. They see the life you still have. They remind you to be grateful. They point toward what remains and believe that should be enough. But the heart can appreciate what remains while still mourning what never came. You are not only grieving an outcome, you are grieving the person you expected to be inside that future. The version of you who would wake in a certain home. The version who would share ordinary mornings with someone. The version who would feel secure, understood, healthy, or finally free from struggle. That person felt real because you carried them for years. You made choices for them. You saved money, stayed patient, worked hard, forgave, delayed pleasure, and endured difficult seasons because you believed they were waiting somewhere ahead. Then the future changed. The relationship ended. The opportunity disappeared. The body developed limits you never planned for. The family changed in ways you could not repair. The door you believed would eventually open remained closed. You may have continued moving while part of you remained, turned toward the old plan. This is why acceptance can feel so painful. Accepting the present means admitting that waiting may no longer bring the expected life closer. It means recognizing that effort, goodness, and patience do not always produce the outcome you believed they should. The Stoics understood that we can guide our actions, but we cannot command life to reward them according to our preferred design. You may act with love and still lose a relationship. You may work faithfully and still face financial difficulty. You may care for your body and still experience illness. You may raise children with devotion and still watch them choose lives that create distance. Your actions matter because they shape your character. They do not purchase complete control over what follows. This truth can feel unfair. Perhaps you believed that if you did everything correctly, life would eventually become safe. You made responsibility into a bargain. You told yourself that enough sacrifice, patience, or discipline would protect you from disappointment. Then disappointment came anyway. The pain is not only that the future changed, it is that the old agreement with life was broken. You may think, I did what I was supposed to do. I waited. I stayed loyal. I worked. I believed. Why did I not receive what I was promised? Sometimes no one made the promise directly. It came from stories, families, culture, or the quiet expectations you formed while watching other people's lives. You believed that adulthood would follow a certain order, love would lead to permanence, hard work would lead to security, age would bring peace, family would remain family. When life refuses this order, you may feel lost, even if much of your daily routine remains the same. The map no longer matches the road. The Stoic response is not to shame yourself for having hoped. Hope is a natural movement of the human heart. Plans give direction. Dreams can provide courage during difficult years. The problem begins when one imagined future becomes the only future you are willing to recognize as a life. Then every other path feels like failure. You may look at what is available now and reject it because it does not resemble what you expected. A quieter life feels lesser than the busy home you pictured. A new relationship feels wrong because it is not the person you planned to grow old beside. A different kind of work feels humiliating because it does not match the success you once imagined. You may be standing near a new life while continuing to face the ruins of the old one. Grief deserves time, but it should not be given authority over every future possibility. Before you can turn, you may need to name what you expected. Perhaps you wanted a peaceful retirement. Perhaps you expected grandchildren nearby. Perhaps you believed a marriage would become kinder with time. Perhaps you thought one day you would finally receive recognition, stability, or an apology. Say the truth without embarrassment. I wanted that life. I worked toward it. I believed it would come. And it did not. These words may awaken anger, sadness, or emptiness. Let them. You are not being negative. You are acknowledging the difference between the life you prepared for and the life that arrived. What remains unnamed often controls you through disappointment. Once named, it can be mourned. Mourning a future does not mean destroying every hope. It means releasing your demand that life must take one exact shape before you are allowed to feel peace. The Stoics practiced holding plans with care rather than possession. They acted toward worthy goals while remembering that the result depended on many forces beyond them. You can prepare for tomorrow. You cannot own tomorrow. This does not make planning useless. It makes flexibility part of wisdom. A tree does not survive every storm by refusing to move. It survives because it can bend without losing its roots. Your roots are not the specific future you pictured. Your roots are your values. Perhaps the old future represented companionship. That value can still guide you toward meaningful connection, even if the original relationship ended. Perhaps it represented purpose. Purpose may still appear through a different form of work, service, creativity, or care. Perhaps it represented security. You may not receive the exact financial or physical certainty you imagined, but you can still build steadiness through wise choices, support, and simpler expectations. The form may change while the deeper need remains worthy of attention. This is where mourning becomes different from surrender. Surrender says, nothing meaningful is possible now. Mourning says, that future is gone, and I must discover what is still possible. The second path requires courage, because it asks you to enter a life without the old map. You may not know what to want next. For years, your hopes may have been organized around one person, one role, or one destination. When it disappears, the future can feel blank. Do not rush to fill the blank. An empty future is frightening, but it is also open. You are not required to create a grand new dream tonight. Begin by noticing what remains alive in you. What still brings a moment of interest? What kind of peace feels possible now? Which relationships still contain honesty? What part of life have you ignored because it did not fit the old plan? These are not questions demanding immediate answers. They are small openings. You may also need to release comparison. Seeing other people receive the future you expected can deepen the grief. Someone celebrates the anniversary you thought you would reach. Someone has the family closeness you wanted. Someone enjoys the health, home, or stability you work toward. Their happiness may awaken pain. This does not make you bitter or unkind. It means their life touches the outline of your loss. You can wish them well without forcing yourself to feel nothing. You can step away from a conversation when your heart is tired. You can admit, this is difficult for me, without turning another person's joy into evidence that life has rejected you. The Stoics warned against measuring your inner life by what fortune has placed in someone else's hands. You see the visible shape of their future. You do not know its full cost, fear, or uncertainty. Their path is theirs. Your work is to meet your own path with dignity. There may also be guilt when a new future begins to appear. Perhaps you meet someone new after believing you would spend life with another person. Perhaps you find peace in a place you never planned to live. Perhaps a changed body leads you toward a slower life that contains unexpected meaning. Part of you may resist because accepting the new future feels like admitting the old one no longer matters. But welcoming what is here does not insult what was lost. You can honor the dream you once carried and still release it. You can say, I would have chosen differently. Then add, but I will not refuse every good thing because it arrived through a different door. This is not false positivity. You do not need to call the loss a blessing. Some losses remain losses. Some changes do not secretly become better than what you wanted. Wisdom does not require you to praise what hurt. It asks you not to become blind to everything that remains. Tonight, picture the future you once expected standing at a distance. Notice its details without entering it. The home, the people, the health, the sense of certainty. Recognize how deeply you wanted it. Then say gently, you guided me for a time. You gave me hope. But I cannot continue waiting for a life that is no longer coming in that form. Let the picture fade at its own pace. You are not throwing it away. You are placing it among the things that mattered but could not remain. There may be tears. Let them belong to the years of hope, the effort, and the person you believed you would become. Let them honor the future without asking it to return. Then bring your attention back to this breath. this room, this life. It may not be the life you requested, but it is the life in which every remaining choice must be made. The Stoic does not waste the present by demanding that fate exchange it for a different one. The Stoic looks at what has arrived and asks, how can I meet this with courage, wisdom, fairness, and care? You may not have chosen this road. You can still choose how you walk it. You may not have received the future you expected. You have not yet seen every future that remains possible. As the night grows quiet, release the belief that your life can only be meaningful if it returns to the original plan. Let the old future rest. Let the person you expected to become be mourned with tenderness. Then allow the unknown to remain open. You do not need to trust the whole road tonight. You need only trust that a changed future is still a future. The dream you lost mattered. The grief is real. But the story is not finished, simply because it refused to follow the ending you had prepared. Tonight you did not erase your grief. You gave it somewhere safe to rest. You loosened the sorrow held in your muscles, released the apologies and goodbyes that never came, mourned the years spent surviving, and began separating old pain from the life still waiting for you. Your body carried what your heart could not process at the time, but it does not have to carry it in the same way forever. The past mattered. The love was real. The loss changed you. Yet none of that requires you to remain trapped inside suffering. You can remember without reliving. You can honor what is gone without disappearing beside it. And you can accept the life that remains without betraying the life you once expected. As you fall deeper into rest, let this truth stay with you. The painful moment has passed. You survived it. You are here, and your body is finally allowed to let go. Before you sleep, leave the words, "I release what my body carried," in the comments. Let those words become your quiet promise that healing can begin without forgetting. And subscribe to the channel for more Stoic sleep meditations that help you rest, heal, and return to yourself.